The Shen Tiandao sect's grand formation was activated, surrounding the entire sect. Countless disciples looked around in panic, not knowing what was happening. Everyone, don't panic. Something happened in the alchemy pavilion. Don't make any random movements. The shouts of hall masters rang out over the crowd. The alchemy pavilion was situated on a huge mountain hundreds of miles wide. The many grand buildings that had dotted the landscape were gone, replaced by a large hole. The other disciples were ordered not to move, but Long Chen was not one of them. He rushed over to get a better look. Seeing the destroyed alchemy pavilion, his eyes were cold. The Shen Master, Tower Department Head, and Lu Song also arrived. All the higher-ups were present. The Shen Master's normally indifferent and leisurely expression was now frighteningly dark. Zhao Chongting, tell me what happened? The Shen Master stared coldly at the Alchemy Pavilion Master. Even killing intent had started to leak out of him. The Alchemy Pavilion was the Shen Tiandao sect's foundation. There were hundreds of alchemists inside and over 1,000 disciples. This terrifying explosion had killed at least half the alchemists, and the majority of the rest were heavily injured. The healing hall was currently rescuing them. It was disciples' negligence. There were 2 disciples who took out earth flame seeds, and as a result, I don't know what happened, but those 2 earth flame seeds suddenly began to rebel. They exploded, and that caused the other earth flame seeds to explode with them, said the Alchemy Pavilion Master with alarm. Long Chen had run over to the core region, and the aura of earth flames was still present. He cursed inside. Instead of giving them to him, they had been wasted like this. The power of an earth flame seed's explosion was extremely terrifying, especially when it exploded underground. Furthermore, there had been multiple earth flame seeds exploding. There was no need to doubt how much destructive power such an explosion possessed. Long Chen picked up a piece of a broken bottle. This was clearly an item used to store an earth flame seed. The aura of the earth flame it had once contained was still present. Earth flame seeds couldn't be stored with metal instruments. That would cause it to feel an innate hostility, and it would instinctively attack the metal. Not only would that destroy the instrument, but the earth flame would also escape. And even if that didn't happen, it would exhaust the earth flame seed's energy until it dissipated. That was why earth flame seeds were stored in special bottles with formations present. That was the only way to keep them obedient. It would be like they were sleeping inside. Although it was just a bottle, it wasn't like a normal bottle. It was just the opposite. The cultivation world's bottles were made of materials stronger than steel, making them extremely sturdy. Picking up a fist-sized piece, he sniffed it. The Alchemy Pavilion Master was infuriated to see Long Chen's actions, but he was also a bit panicked. You really are vicious. You actually applied everlasting frost heart powder to the bottle. It corroded the bottle and spread a layer of ice energy imperceptible to the naked eye. When an alchemist touches it, the ice energy will provoke their pill flame, causing the bottle to instantly shatter. Thereafter, the ice energy on the bottle will attack the earth flame seed inside. An unintelligent earth flame seed will then naturally explode, and that will cause the others to explode as well. Tell me, Pavilion Master, were the disciples you sent to take out the earth flame seeds your most outstanding disciples? Long Chen sighed. The Alchemy Pavilion Master raged, Long Chen, don't slander others or make up random guesses. This was just an accident. Long Chen looked at him sympathetically. The Shen Master's words were absolutely true. The cultivation world's people cared too much about power and didn't know how to use their heads. Long Chen raised the fragment. The everlasting frost heart powder is a medicinal ingredient, but it is also used in forging items. I'm sure the majority of the forging disciples would recognize it. Should we have a forging master look? There's no need. There truly is everlasting frost heart powder on it. It's clear with just a look. It expels ice chi used in forging for cooling. But when it encounters flames, especially powerful flames, the ice chi will be locked within the weapon. It's one of the most elementary methods for creating ice attribute weapons. I would be willing to bet my own head that everlasting frost heart powder has been applied to this bottle fragment, said a muscular but short elder. Hearing that, everyone's expressions changed. The one who had just spoken was the Forging Pavilion Master. He definitely wouldn't randomly spout nonsense. Zhao Changting, don't you think you should give me an explanation? Demanded the Xian master coldly. Xian master, I have no idea about this. Someone's definitely framing me, cried the alchemy pavilion master. That's fine. Such a minor thing is very simple. The Xian master waved his hand, and space twisted. A huge mirror appeared in the air. When the alchemy pavilion master saw this mirror, he immediately turned as pale as paper. The mirror lit up and shined its light on the ruins. Figures flashed back and forth until finally, a burst of flames erupted from the center of the ruins. Long Chen was startled. The scene he was seeing was what had happened just after the alchemy pavilion had exploded. The reincarnation mirror was actually reversing time to replay what had happened. But this scene was just too lifelike, making it extremely shocking. Very quickly, they arrived in a scene where the flames retreated to the bottles and two disciples left an underground treasure house. Because everything was going backward, things looked odd. Following this, a black-robed man appeared in the treasure house. The figure was smearing some transparent liquid onto the bottles of the earth flame seeds. The scene continued going backward until they saw the alchemy pavilion master speaking with an elder. The scene came to a sudden stop. All they saw of that elder was his back. He was very thin and a complete stranger. The Xian master recalled the reincarnation mirror and turned to the alchemy pavilion master. Zhao Changting, I don't know if you've lost your mind with age, but how stupid do you have to be to actually forget the ability of the Shen Dao sect's divine items? Speak, why did you destroy my alchemy pavilion? Within the crowd, Luo Fan was also looking at the alchemy pavilion master with shock. His relations with him were good, but he hadn't expected him to be this crazy. There's nothing to say. I have no idea about any of this. Someone is clearly framing me. Furthermore, although I am a pavilion master of the Shintian Dao sect, I am also an honorable guest of Pill Valley. You have no authority over me. I will report this matter back to Pill Valley, and they will naturally testify to my innocence. The alchemy pavilion master suddenly became unyielding, and he smiled coldly at the Xian master. Pill Valley? Long Chen suddenly recalled a figure he had seen for just a flash before it disappeared. He narrowed his eyes. It seemed the reason behind this incident was quite complicated. Did you think Pill Valley would be your protective talisman? You're wrong. Even if you are a member of Pill Valley, anyone who would destroy an important place of the Shintian Dao sect like the Alchemy Pavilion and kill my disciples will find it difficult to escape their death. The Xian master sent out a palm. Heaven and earth shook fiercely. It was like this palm filled the entire world. Long Chen didn't even see it land before the Alchemy Pavilion master exploded into bits. Not even his soul managed to escape. After killing the Alchemy Pavilion master with a single palm, the Xian master looked at the ruins for a moment and then left without a word, his expression frighteningly dark. He was clearly furious. Lu Tsang stayed behind, arranging for people to clean up. After all, there was a storehouse of medicinal pills below. He was trying to see if he could save any. But he was disappointed to find that the pills that should have been in the storehouse were all gone. The Alchemy Pavilion master's spatial ring was also gone. Their savings of hundreds of years had vanished just like this. That made everyone's expressions change. The Alchemy Pavilion master had truly been vicious to secretly destroy all the medicinal pills. They now realized why the Xian master was so furious. Medicinal pills were the foundation of any sect in the cultivation world. Now that the Alchemy Pavilion was destroyed and their stock was gone, the few medicinal pills stored in the 10,000 pill hall for sale would only be able to last an enormous existence like the Dao sect for 1 or 2 months. Luo Fan left with a gloomy expression. The Alchemy Pavilion master had been executed on the spot by the Xian master, causing him to feel sympathetic. When he had first gone against the Elder Hall, he had formed an alliance with the Alchemy Pavilion. Now Lu Tsang was vice Xian master, and he was alone. His enemy was an existence he could only look up to, while his ally had to have gone crazy and had destroyed the foundation of the Shintian Dao sect for seemingly no reason. Now that the Alchemy Pavilion was destroyed, the Shintian Dao sect was in a state of extreme crisis. The supply of medicinal pills was about to become a fatal issue that would very likely lead to the sect's complete collapse. Looking at Luo Fan's parting figure, Long Chen was lost in thought. This had come so suddenly that he almost couldn't react. He still felt this matter was queer. Right now, Lu Tsong was having people tidy up and search the remnants of the alchemy pavilion to see if they could find anything valuable. However, other than a few pieces of equipment for refining pills, there was nothing else of value that remained. Not good. Vice Sect Master, our medicinal fields. They've been destroyed as well. Thousands of miles of medicinal fields are barren. What? Everyone furiously flew to the medicinal fields. When they arrived, they saw that the originally flourishing fields had been picked clean. The land had been scorched, and all the precious medicines had been turned to ash. That bastard Zhao Chongting. The Shen Master really let him off too easily by killing him. Everyone was filled with fury. Lu Tsong had a worried expression. The alchemy pavilion had been destroyed, and so had their medicinal pills. From now on, the Shen Tiandao sect would have to buy large quantities of pills from outside. But the Shen Tiandao sect wasn't rich, and things had been hard-pressed in recent years. This blow from the alchemy pavilion master would very likely be a fatal one for the Shen Tiandao sect. 3 days after the alchemy pavilion master was killed, a group of people wearing Pill Valley's robes arrived at the Shen Tiandao sect. Shen Tiandao sect, why would you kill my Pill Valley's honored guest elder? If you don't give me a satisfactory explanation, just wait for Pill Valley's sanctions. There were dozens of red-robed elders standing in front of the Shen Tiandao sect's mountain gate. All of them had the image of a pill furnace embroidered on their chests. These people came from Pill Valley. The alchemy pavilion master had been one of their members. He could be likened to one of Pill Valley's external elders, one of their outside workers. On the Martial Heaven continent, 99% of all alchemists were related to Pill Valley in some way. If they weren't direct disciples of Pill Valley, they were still under Pill Valley's name. One reason was because this status was grander, while the other reason was that this status would allow them to receive Pill Valley's protection in times of trouble. The alchemy pavilion master had only dared to do what he had done because of his status as part of Pill Valley. According to reason, if he had truly committed such a grave crime, the Shen Tiandao sect should have first alerted Pill Valley. With his status, he couldn't be killed just because they wanted to kill him. And so Pill Valley's people had come for an explanation. Seeing this, Long Chen sank into thought. It seemed this matter was growing more and more complicated. Scram! In front of these tyrannical experts from Pill Valley, the Shen Master's reply was just a single word. It was curt and sharp, clearly expressing his attitude. Those Pill Valley experts were all infuriated. They represented Pill Valley, but they had been told to scram? Their leader shouted, "How brazen! Do you realize what you're doing?" Suddenly, the Shen Tian Tower located at the center of the sect lit up with blazing light, and a terrifying pressure descended. "I'll give you to the count of 3. Scram or die. Choose for yourself." The Shen Master's icy voice rang out once more. "Fine. Then let's wait and see. I hope your Shen Tiandao sect can stay so obstinate to the end. Don't come crawling on your knees to my Pill Valley." With a final roar, the Pill Valley experts left. All the elders were worried. The usually refined and patient Shen Master had actually become this coarse. He even completely offended Pill Valley. With their alchemy pavilion and medicinal fields destroyed, the Shen Tiandao sect would quickly reach the point of despair. "Long Chen, come to my room." Just as Long Chen was watching Pill Valley's experts leave, the Shen Master's voice rang out in his head. When he arrived, he was surprised to see that the Shen Master's expression was very relaxed. He was leisurely steeping some tea. "What? Is my expression different from what you imagined?" The Shen Master smiled. "Cough, maybe a bit?" Long Chen sat beside the tea table. He saw the tea had just finished steeping and was about to pour some. But the Shen Master beat him to it, pouring tea into Long Chen's cup. At this time, the Shen Master didn't have any bit of a sect leader's imposing dignity. Instead, he seemed like an ordinary elder. "Do you have many questions?" The Xian master pushed the teacup in front of Long Chen. Long Chen hastily received it with both his hands. He nodded. Yes. But I'm afraid that once I ask, you'll once again say that it's not something I should know. Then I won't have any face and I'll feel like a foolish child. You are a baby barely into his 20s. Compared to us, you are naturally a child. You're still in the process of learning how to walk and accumulating experience. The more you fall, the more you'll learn. Some things can't be told to you because of karmic restrictions, and some things would not be the slightest bit beneficial to you if you learned them. Instead, they would rattle your Tao heart. But as long as certain things are within the right scope, you can still learn them, said the Xian master with a smile. Then disciple won't stand on courtesy. I want to know, what was that figure that only appeared for a flash in the scene that day? Was it someone from Pill Valley? The Xian master laughed. Child, your eyes are sharp. I put it away so quickly, but you still noticed. Yes, that person is truly from Pill Valley. In fact, he's one of the people that came today. Then does that mean you are completely clear about everything that happened? Correct. Other than the tower department head, no one else knows this, but every action, every movement in the Shintian Dao sect is under the surveillance of the reincarnation mirror. The only exception is you. Hearing that everyone was under the reincarnation mirror's supervision startled him. Then wouldn't that mean his secrets had been exposed? In truth, I'm quite curious about your secrets. I'd be interested in knowing what trump cards you have. But the reincarnation mirror was once injured because of you, and it doesn't dare to watch over you any longer as it is afraid of being infected by karma. The Xian master helplessly shook his head. Back in the Eastern Wastelands branch sex trial, Long Chen had suddenly encountered the soul of an expert from the corrupt path. It had helped him activate the future lake within the trial, which had allowed him to look at his origins. But only a few scenes had appeared before everything had vanished. In order to con the soul, he had then asked it to help him deduce the origin of the 9-star hegemon body art. Future Lake was a projection of the reincarnation mirror. Deducing the origin of the 9-star hegemon body art had almost caused the reincarnation mirror to be permanently damaged, so as soon as he arrived in the Shintian Dao sect, the reincarnation mirror had noticed him, which was why the Xian master and patriarch had immediately taken note of him. I am very clear on what happened with the alchemy pavilion. In fact, I intentionally allowed it. Zhao Chongting was actually a chess piece that Pill Valley placed inside my Shintian Dao sect to keep watch over us. You don't need to find that strange. Pill Valley is far greater than you imagined. Although Pill Valley claims that it doesn't participate in the cultivation world struggles and is neutral, it actually secretly controls countless sections. That's because all the large sects are dependent on it. Although the Dao sect treated Zhao Chongting well, his aspirations were too high. Even though this matter was a result of Pill Valley's decision as well, the original idea definitely didn't come from them. Disciple doesn't understand. Pill Valley has an outer valley and inner valley. The inner valley rarely gets involved in mundane matters. Instead, they focus on cultivation and researching the Pill Dao. But the outer valley is in charge of Pill Valley's regular operations and businesses. It is in charge of the pill towers that interact with the rest of the world. There are 480 pill towers in the Central Plains, all of them in charge of the supply of medicinal pills in different regions. The group of people that just came are in charge of the pill tower in the region we are in, and their relationship with the heaven-suppressing magic sect is very good. Now do you understand? Explained the Xian master. Now Long Chen understood. This matter had been done intentionally by Pill Tower because of their relationship with the heaven-suppressing magic sect. The Alchemy Pavilion Master wished to become a true member of Pill Valley, which was a sacred land for alchemists. As long as the Pill Tower set up a few conditions and made a few promises, guaranteeing that the Xian Master wouldn't do anything to him, the Alchemy Pavilion Master wouldn't possibly be able to resist their enticement. That was what had caused the Alchemy Pavilion to explode. But the Alchemy Pavilion Master hadn't thought that his protective talisman would be completely useless. The Xian Master hadn't even given him a chance. Is the Pill Tower really so brazen? Isn't the Shintian Dao sect one of the 3 great heavenly sects? They dare to treat us like this? Asked Long Chen. Yes, we are part of the three great heavenly sections. But the three great heavenly sects have long since declined. That saying is just a sign of our former glory. Now, there are other more powerful sects, and the three great sects are only a bit above middle-level powers. We fell from the ranks of the top sects a long time ago. The most important thing is that the Pill Tower's people know that no matter what, Pill Valley will protect them. Pill Valley's power is so great that as long as they declare you are black, you will never be white again. Furthermore, Zhao Changting's actions will cause us to be dependent on Pill Valley, so they wouldn't punish anyone. Instead, they would secretly reward the Pill Tower for this, said the Xian Master indifferently. Then aren't we currently in a grave crisis? We entered a constant state of crisis a long time ago. The dangers you can see aren't fearsome. The worst danger is the one of the frog being boiled alive in a slowly heating pot of water. By the time you react, it would be too late. Now, the danger is crystal clear. That's not necessarily a bad thing. As for those people from the Pill Tower, they're trying to hit us while we're down. They want us to be completely under the banner of Pill Valley. Rather than that, having them directly scram will make the Dao sect's interior much cleaner and is even beneficial, said the Xian Master. But our medicinal pills and medicinal fields? Foolish child, since I could allow Zhao Changting to do this, how could I not have my own preparations? 400 years ago, I secretly created another alchemy region and recruited quite a few alchemists. Although it wasn't as much as the alchemy pavilion, there are enough stores of medicinal pills to last us a few years. The Xian Master involuntarily laughed. Long Chen also awkwardly laughed. But his laugh was a bit forced. Do you feel like I'm too cruel? Asked the Xian Master. Perhaps it just really is like you say. I'm not suited to be a ruler. Long Chen couldn't help but sigh emotionally. This matter had killed so many people. The Xian Master had clearly known that would happen, but he had still allowed it to occur. Although to a ruler, doing such a thing wasn't a problem, Long Chen still felt uncomfortable with it. He definitely wouldn't just watch as members of his Dragonblood Legion died, not even one. There is no absolute right and wrong in this world. The only thing that matters is the final result. If there comes a day that you have to sacrifice a part of your Dragonblood Legion to save the majority, what would you do? The Xian Master looked at Long Chen. I wouldn't allow such a thing to happen. But what if it did happen? What would you choose? If you hesitate, it will only cause more people to die. If such a thing truly happened, I wouldn't sacrifice a part. I would bring everyone to die along with them. Hypothetical questions are all senseless things. Long Chen smiled, completely calm. The Xian Master was startled. He hadn't thought about this answer. After a long moment, he sighed. Long Chen's style of handling things was too domineering. But compared to a soft approach, hard things snapped easier. Long Chen's character was lacking elasticity. Alright, then let's talk about proper things. I'm preparing to send you to get a large sum of money, said the Xian Master. The next day after Long Chen left the Xian Master's room, all the inner sect disciples were gathered once more. This included the disciples from the senior generation. The announcement was that all inner sect disciples were to be sent to the Xiantian Dao sect's defensive territory bordering the Eastern Sea. The new disciples were still puzzled, but the old disciples were delighted. The Eastern Sea referred to the part of the Martial Heaven Sea Ring that bordered the eastern part of the Martial Heaven continent. The Xiantian Dao sect had a 4 million mile zone there that they were to defend. Other than the natural defenses, the places where the sea ring met the continent were all defended by the various large sections. They had all established defensive fortifications against sea demons. All sects with any fame were in charge of an area. The stronger the sect, the greater the area they would defend. And the greater the area, the more manpower they would need to spend on defending. However, there were also benefits. Taking the edges of their defensive regions and drawing straight lines until they reached the eastern wasteland, all the resources found within that region of the sea would go to the defender. The Martial Heaven Sea Ring not only had countless sea demons, but it was also filled with countless mineral deposits. There were many rare ores present in the sea. But due to the rampant sea demons, mining those ores was difficult. Without a certain amount of power, Any sect attempting such a thing would pay a heavy price instead of making money. As for the region the Xiantiandao sect was in charge of, there were 3 rare or deposits, as well as an artificial breeding zone where a few precious sea demons were being raised. This region was one of the pillars of the Xiantiandao sect. Each year, the sect would take in a large amount of wealth from this region. There was plenty of profit to be made here, even by disciples. The previous generation's disciples had not only gained a huge number of points for their work, but when they had time off, they could even go hunting in the sea. Any treasures they obtained would be theirs. It was the best opportunity to get rich. It could be said that other than the infernal devil abyss, this was the best place to get points. And there wasn't much danger there. You're not going for fun. According to the scouts, the sea's tide is starting to rise, and it's very likely that a huge beast tide will pour out of the sea not long from now. Your mission is to kill as many sea demons as possible before the beast tide comes. This is a rare opportunity. Although there aren't any points given for this, the corpses and cores of the sea demons you kill will be yours. However, I don't want to see people fighting each other because of money. This time, the leaders of the expedition will be Long Chen and Gao Xiang. The 2 of them have different leadership styles, but their combat power is about the same. So you can all choose which side to join for yourselves. Once you choose, you won't be able to switch, and their orders must be executed regardless of any circumstances. Otherwise, the Elder Hall will decide the punishment, said Lu Tsang, the new Vice Xian Master. Everyone was surprised to hear there would be 2 leaders. Clearly, the Dao sect was aware that the 2 of them couldn't work together. Forcing them to do so would only cause chaos. In other words, the factions were essentially dissolved. In the future, the Xiantiandao sect would only have 2 factions. Either choose Long Chen's or choose Gao Xiang's. Stand behind whoever you choose. I'll give you 15 minutes. Choose well, said Lu Tsang. The Heaven Female Alliance was the first to burst into cheers and run to the Dragonblood Legion's side. Hua Shiyu clenched her teeth in fury. You immoral girls, you're all thankless wretches. I can't believe I ever treated you so well. He doesn't even need to seduce you for you to go running to him. Big sister Shiyu, they're just excited. You're naturally the big sister we respect the most, comforted Zhao Ziyan. She knew Hua Shiyu's character. She was very obstinate, and she didn't like men. Even if she admired Long Chen, seeing all her people immediately run to his side naturally irritated her, causing her to feel betrayed. Zhao Ziyan pulled Hua Shiyu over and winked to Long Chen. He immediately understood. Fairy Shiyu will be able to fight side by side again in the future. Control your army of fairies. I don't want to see my brothers run off because they were seduced, laughed Long Chen. Tisich, if you have any ability, just try seducing anyone. Hua Shiyu frowned. But Long Chen's words still caused her to relax greatly. His meaning was clear. The Heaven Female Alliance was still the Heaven Female Alliance. The Dragonblood Legion wouldn't touch them. Although Hua Shiyu had also known that Long Chen wasn't such a person, she didn't like the feeling of having the power taken from her. Furthermore, she was still sensitive after her previous loss. She was even afraid that others would begin looking down on her. Although Zhao Ziyan had constantly comforted and encouraged her, and the other disciples had increased their care of her, she still didn't feel any sense of security. But Long Chen's words, although they also contained a somewhat provoking air, put her at ease. Boss, even Fairy Shiyu is telling you to try seducing one. Why don't you show off your pickup techniques for your brothers? Laughed Guoran. Long Chen was speechless. This fool was truly incurable. All the words he had said last time were forgotten now. Aya! Guoran's laughter came to a halt as he was kicked away by Tangwan. Even after being beaten 100 times, he didn't learn his lesson. Was he a pig? He only remembered eating but didn't remember being beaten. Long Chen acted like he didn't see anything. After kicking away Guoran, Tangwaner went over to welcome Hua Shiyu. The 2 of them had ended up particularly close. That was because last time, Tangwaner had been defeated while trying to get revenge for Hua Shiyu, and that one action made Hua Shiyu feel extremely grateful to her. Besides, their characters were both similarly fiery, so it had been easy for them to find common ground. Wang Zhen also led his 10,000 insect guild's disciples over. Long Chen patted him on the shoulder and didn't say anything. Wang Zhen wasn't too fond of words. Sometimes, a single action was enough to express everything. There was no need for so many words. What Long Chen hadn't expected was for members from the Hegemon Hall, Flame Gate, and Divine Beast Mansion to also come over. Senior apprentice brother Long Chen, we admire you and want to follow you. Please take us, said one of Flame Gate's disciples hopefully. If those words had come from a beauty, I'd be much happier. Coming from a man, I'll cough up what I ate last night. If you want to fight alongside me, then there's no need for such words, nor do you need to say anything about devoting your heart to me. I'm sure you know what kind of person I am, so you can just come right over, said Long Chen. Everyone involuntarily laughed, but the laughter of the men was rather wretched. Long Chen's coarse method of speaking ended up making them feel closer. Many thanks, senior apprentice brother Long Chen. Those disciples were delighted that Long Chen would accept them even after they had once been enemies. They hadn't wanted to be enemies, but their 3 leaders had wanted to fight against him, so they had had no way around it. The power that Long Chen had revealed in his battle against Han Zhenyu had completely won them over. They felt like following such a wild and domineering person would be an honor. Even if they died, they wouldn't have lived for nothing. This was the charisma of experts. In the cultivation world, power was everything, and it was irresistible to men and women. Furthermore, Long Chen didn't have the slightest arrogance of an expert. He was like an ordinary person. Only when he exploded would he show his domineering side. Just the sight of that was enough to make people's blood boil. Seeing that Long Chen didn't refuse them, and instead used such a joking method to express his attitude toward them, they were both surprised and grateful. They all charged over. Hey, don't push. Are you trying to take advantage? Let me warn you, be careful of being beaten, shouted Guoran. He wanted to maintain order. Because there were now too many people and some of them were so passionate and excited, he was worried for the Heaven Female Alliance's beauties. Even he hadn't had a chance to take advantage, so how could he give the opportunity to them? Seeing Long Chen accept them all without the slightest animosity, more and more disciples rushed over to the Dragonblood Legion. Oh, great Commander Long, this big sister will have to listen to your commands in the future. Don't abuse your position, teased Mu Qingxian as she came over with Su Mo and the senior generation's disciples at their side. A somewhat helpless expression appeared on Su Mo's face, but he didn't say anything. Long Chen laughed. If I abused my position against you, then senior apprentice brother Su Mo would definitely kill me. I still want to live a few more years, so spare me. Although Long Chen was still young, he possessed the 9-star Hegemon body art, and he was extremely sensitive to changes in other people's emotions. He could see that in truth, Su Mo had always had Mu Qingxian in his heart. However, he was a bit too wooden and inarticulate, and didn't know how to express his feelings. Mu Qingxian looked at Su Mo with surprise. Su Mo's expression immediately became unnatural and he looked away. Mu Qingxian seemed to understand something, and she smiled slightly. She didn't say any more. More and more disciples came. When the 15 minutes were up, 80% of the new disciples had come to Long Chen's side, while over half the senior generation's disciples had also joined him. They had come because of Long Chen's terrifying potential. That made Gao Xianyang and Hu Gishan's expressions extremely unsightly. And Luo Fan's expression was even uglier. Years of his work had been wasted like this. All the disciples still ended up under Long Chen's control, which was equivalent to them being snatched away by the Elder Hall. They had snatched them up so easily. As if all this was within his expectations, Lu Tsang announced, "Go and rest for a night. You'll move out tomorrow morning." As Lu Tsang left, Luo Fan looked at his back. With bitter resentment in his eyes, he also left. The next day, one large and one small flying boat moved out of the Xiantiandao sect, going directly to the Eastern Sea. Long Chen stood alone at the prow of the boat. The barrier had already been activated. Seeing the mountains rapidly going past him down below, he had a strange feeling. Yesterday, he had been called over by the Xian master to discuss a few things. Only after the two of them had chatted did Long Chen realize he had misjudged the Xian master. In Long Chen's heart, the Xian master had been a completely unrivaled hero, someone who was upright and virtuous. He hadn't expected that he was wrong. When they had talked about the huge gamble he had made against the heaven-suppressing magic sect, Long Chen had asked the Xian master whether or not he had been worried about losing. The Xian master's reply was that he hadn't been the slightest bit worried. Even if he had lost, it would have been fine. A problem had occurred in the spirit stone mine he had gambled. They had suddenly found an extremely thick rock stratum. That layer was hundreds of miles thick, and it covered far too much land. It was impossible to avoid. If they wanted to continue mining, they would have to break through it. But breaking through such a thick layer of rock stratum would require a huge amount of manpower. Most importantly, no one knew whether or not there were more spirit stones down below. Even if there weren't enough, it wouldn't make up for the loss of breaking through the rock stratum. Right now, the spirit stone mine had already ceased production. All the workers were studying the probability of there being more spirit stones below and in what quantities. The results of their study were not encouraging. The chance there were still spirit stones below was only 50%. And if there were, then based on the current state of the mine, the amount below wouldn't be very great. It was likely it wouldn't make up for the cost of breaking through the rock. So this huge spirit stone mine had become an annoying point for the Shintiandao sect. Just whether or not they should continue excavating was a problem. And so the Xian master hadn't even frowned upon taking it out to bet. He had already abandoned this mine, because he had no money to risk on it. As for the Life Star bead, that made Long Chen even more flabbergasted. The Xian master said that his Life Star bead was garbage. When Life Star experts broke through to their realm, they left behind their lifetime comprehension of cultivation. It was an extremely precious cultivation inheritance. But when the Xian master had advanced to the Life Star realm, his lightning tribulation had been too powerful, and his Life Star bead had lost the majority of its spirituality to the tribulation. The inheritance the Xian master had left behind was incomplete. It was basically trash. When Long Chen heard this, he couldn't help being completely dumbstruck. That was far too evil. He had actually taken out 2 pieces of garbage to gamble with another person's businesses. If Ma Xingkong learned of this, wouldn't he directly die of anger? However, the Xian master told Long Chen that the process wasn't important. The only important thing was the result. He couldn't limit himself. In the cultivation world, all rules were nothing more than the playing of rogues. The winner was the more shameless one. If you wholeheartedly wanted to act as a man of honor to the end, your end would truly come quickly and miserably to boot. The previous Xian master had conformed with the rules very well. He was upright, acting openly and candidly. But what had that resulted in? The current plight of the Shintiandao sect. He had been considering things from his own standpoint, instead of thinking of the Dao sect's millions of disciples. This was a mediocre way of leading. When the Xian master said this, he intentionally looked at Long Chen profoundly. His meaning was clear. To survive in the cultivation world, he had to be willing to use any means necessary. He shouldn't blindly try to be a hero and thus have his hands tied. That would cause many more people to die. It seems I really am too immature. Long Chen couldn't help but sigh. As expected, the Xian master's wisdom was not something a little rookie like him could compare to. The Xian master had his own special kind of charisma. It was as though no matter what happened, everything would be within his control. With his strategies, he was able to win victories from thousands of miles away. It was like with him present, there would be no problems. As for Long Chen, what he lacked was control. But he had no way around it. He was well aware of his own weaknesses. The Xian master himself had even said that Long Chen was no less intelligent than him. It was just that once his anger flared, all that intelligence would vanish. Whatever. Everyone has their own paths and I can just walk my own path. Some things can't be obtained just through wanting them. Long Chen sighed deeply and stretched. Long Chen, why have you run over here? We were looking all over. He turned back to see Meng Qi, Tang Wan, Hua Xiyu, and Zhao Ziyan come over. Oh, Are these the legendary 4 great beauties of the Shantian Dao sect? I am honored that you would be looking for me, laughed Long Chen. Tang Wanna rolled her eyes and said, have some propriety. You are now a commander, so have some respect. You're right. For you to honor my humble self with your presence, I should have come to get you. I can't believe I was lacking such manners. Please come sit and let me pour you some tea. Long Chen hastily put on a respectful appearance. When I said to have some respect, I didn't mean this kind of nonsense. Tang Wanner laughingly pushed Long Chen, bringing him inside where they could all sit around a stone table. Long Chen, I hear you know how to read fortunes. Can you read mine? Said Hua Shiyu out of nowhere. Long Chen waved his hand. What fortune-telling? That's all just nonsense used to trick fools. As soon as he said this, he realized Zhao Ziyan was staring closely at him. He immediately realized he had been conned. Haha, do you see, Sister Ziyan? I told you he was just a swindler. He couldn't possibly have any heaven-peering abilities, but you refused to believe it, laughed Hua Shiyu. Zhao Ziyan's expression was a bit unnatural now. Long Chen swore inside. But did they think they could truly beat him like this? When it came to conning people, he had never encountered anyone greater than himself. Fate contains the mysteries of the innate world and the consequences of the will. With the two of them merged, with the 5 spirits of heaven, earth, man, God, and ghost as the foundation, with the 5 elements of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth as the transformation, there are innumerable possibilities. Even immortals and gods have no way to grasp the form of fate. This is an explanation I found in an ancient ruin within the immemorial path pertaining to reading the future. The future is constantly changing, and it involves all things within heaven and earth. The fundamental movement of the cosmos can change things. Even gods and immortals are helpless when it comes to this, so how could I, an ordinary mortal, possibly see the future? Long Chen shook his head while sighing. The 4 women stared blankly at him. Even Hua Shiyu stopped laughing. His words were too profound for them to understand. Senior apprentice brother Long Chen, these principles of yours are amazing, but they're hard to understand. Can you explain it to us in more detail? Asked Hua Shiyu respectfully, putting away her mocking smile. Long Chen laughed inside. Even he didn't know what he was saying. But it seemed it had worked. He shook his head. The so-called laws and fortunes of heaven and earth are split into yin and yang. On their own, yin cannot live, and yang cannot grow. The reason you are confused is because you only see one side of things, while you are blind to the other side. That's why the things you see are always the things you want to see, but are not necessarily the true essence of things. As for the heaven-peering art you speak of, it is nothing more than some people peeking at the slightest thread of the will of the heavenly Taoists. All they do is generalize from that tiny little bit. Calculating the future is the opposite of looking into the past. Looking into the past is easier, because you use the consequences to calculate the reasons. Of course, such a thing is useless. But when it comes to predicting the future, even just making a prediction will cause a slight change. By using the present to calculate the future, you have created a new future, one that will be different from the old future. That's why I said that fortune-tellers are all swindlers. No one can accurately tell a person's future. That's also why people often say man proposes, but God disposes. When it comes to fortune-telling, nothing anyone says is reliable. But when it comes to reading faces, I'm actually quite skilled. So rather than telling you your fortune, why don't I read your face? Fairy Shiyu, do you want to try? Long Chen spouted nonsense with complete seriousness. The 4 women felt like they half understood and half didn't. Even those familiar with Long Chen like Meng Qi and Tang Wan'er were fooled, because Long Chen's words truly sounded reasonable. Listening closely, they seemed to contain boundless profundities. How do you read my face? Hua Shiyu was moved. She wanted to increase her knowledge of this face reading, because what Long Chen had said before was very profound. My face reading is actually a special, all-encompassing version. Not only do I read the face, but I also read the palms and the bones. In accordance with the saying that the appearance is born from the heart, the face is the most important part. Even people without face-reading abilities can guess a person's general character and morality by looking at their face. However, there are countless transformations and changes that are not innate, and so reading just the face is destined to just be a basic examination. It cannot be fully trusted. But the palms are shaped at birth, and the palm lines are essentially set. They do not change in life. But the faint changes in their color and the slight trends within it can allow one to see the possibilities for the future. So let's first do a palm reading, said Long Chen. Seeing Long Chen extend his hand, Hua Xiu unconsciously placed her hand in his. Her hand was soft and satiny, making it feel excellent. Long Chen's expression was calm, but he involuntarily felt a wave of emotion. It seemed fortune-tellers were truly blessed with luck with women. Hua Xiu acted calm with Long Chen holding her hand, but she began to blush. As far as she recalled, ever since she had stopped being a child, she had never held hands with a man. Furthermore, she felt a strange feeling from Long Chen's hand that made her heartbeat quicken. She was like a deer noticed in the wild, but she also couldn't express that. She forcibly acted like she didn't mind. Long Chen, are you going to look? What are you doing just touching? You scoundrel, you wouldn't be taking advantage of Sister Xiu, right? Tang Wan'er started to get suspicious upon seeing Long Chen simply sitting there, feeling Hua Xiu's hand. What do you know? When palm reading, the first thing to do is to warm the hand and increase the blood flow by 10%. That's to make the palm lines clearer so they're easier to read. Long Chen gave an unashamed explanation as he felt just one hand wasn't enough. He also pulled in Hua Xiu's other hand. Hua Xiu turned even redder, but she refused to express her nervousness. She still pretended she didn't care. Long Chen chortled to himself. She had put him on the spot just before, and after spending so much saliva spouting such nonsense, it was time to get a return. Is that enough? It's been 2 hours. If you keep going, my hands are going to get swollen. Hua Xiu finally couldn't endure it any longer. Oh, I suppose this is good enough. Long Chen immediately became embarrassed. The feeling was just too good, and he had gotten addicted to the soft and supple feeling. Tell me, said Hua Xiu. She wanted to see what kind of evaluation he had. All right, this hand is not bad. As soon as Long Chen's words rang out, he felt a bad change in the air. When I say Fairy Xiu's palm lines are not bad, I mean the lines are clear and her hands are healthy. But when it comes to her fate, things don't look so good. There are 3 clear intersections of her palm lines, and the final one is the clearest. This means that Fairy Xiu will run into at least 3 difficulties in life, and the third one will be the most difficult. Long Chen spoke frankly with absolute assurance as he held Hua Xiu's hands. An expression of disbelief appeared on Hua Xiu's face. She stared at Long Chen with shock. Her voice trembled as she asked, "How did you know I ran into 3 bumps in my life?" Long Chen was also startled. He hadn't thought it would be this easy. In truth, he had just acted in accordance with how fortune-tellers con people. First, he spouted a vague generalization, and then he gave out a number that was neither high nor low. This was the easiest way to convince others. No matter how peaceful a person's life was, it wasn't as if everything could be smooth sailing. They would always run into a few setbacks or encounter things that displeased them, which then stayed in their mind. As for the number 3, it was the number with the highest probability of being right. So fortune-tellers would often use this number as a foundation to con people. Furthermore, Long Chen hadn't said anything definite. He had said that she would run into at least 3. That was a very shameless way of guessing. If she had run into 10 setbacks, he would be right. If she had run into 100 setbacks, he would also be right. Even if she had experienced 1,000 setbacks, that was still greater than 3. Originally, Long Chen had been planning to say some more hints and suggestions based on her reaction, but this random number of his ended up striking right on the mark. Even he found it a bit inconceivable. I truly did run into 3 rather large setbacks. Once when I was young and exchanging pointers, an accident occurred, and my chi began to flow in reverse. I was almost crippled. Once when I was 20 and my father sent me into the mountains for training, I encountered a sneak attack from my enemies and almost lost my life. and my miserable defeat last time just happens to be the third time. Long Chen, do you really have fortune-telling abilities? Hua Xiu was filled with shock. If I didn't, do you think I would babble so much? Boasted Long Chen absolutely shamelessly. Meng Qi, Tang Wan'er, and Zhao Ziyan were also looking at him with shock. At first, Meng Qi and Tang Wan'er had been suspicious of his actions, thinking he was up to mischief. They had let him go on because this was a victimless prank, and even the jealous Tang Wan'er was able to just barely accept this. But who would have thought, the more Long Chen spoke, the more they believed him. It seemed Long Chen really had this ability. A trace of worship appeared in Tang Wan'er's eyes. So in truth, Long Chen was a true man with real abilities. He was different from Guoran, who showed off everything he could. Long Chen hid his abilities well. Right now, in Tang Wan'er's eyes, Long Chen was a low-key powerful man with great internal quality. However, if she knew his goal was to purely take advantage of a beauty, wouldn't she throttle him to death? Feeling the hand of another peerless beauty in front of his own beauties was a feeling others couldn't experience. Seeing the four of them staring at him so admiringly, Long Chen was even starting to admire himself. Long Chen, can you calculate my future? Asked Hua Xiu expectantly. In truth, this was a common aspect of women. Perhaps this was the result of men feeling combative and wanting to go against what fate had planned for them, while women wished to know their future to know what would happen. In the secular world, fortune-tellers all preferred targeting women. Of course, another reason was because even if they couldn't dupe them, at least they wouldn't be beaten black and blue. Long Chen had an urge to laugh, but now he no longer dared to admit he was blindly spouting nonsense. Otherwise, Hua Xiu would immediately turn hostile. If you ride a tiger, it's hard to get off. He couldn't retreat at this time, or he'd be exposed. Palm reading is for calculating the past. If you want to predict the future, palm reading won't be so accurate. We'll need to do a bone reading. But a bone reading isn't based on looking but on feeling. In other words, it's the legendary bone-feeling fortune-telling. But for you, it's not too suitable. Long Chen shook his head. The four of them had also heard of this kind of fortune-telling, but they had never seen it. They didn't know much about it. Hua Xiu turned red, but she seemed to greatly wish for it. Where do you have to touch? Asked Hua Xiu, her voice no louder than a mosquito. Cough, in truth, feeling the arms is enough. The two leg bones focus on the innate, while the two arms focus on the future. However, this is my first time trying this kind of fortune-telling. If I end up doing it wrong or touching the wrong place by accident, it might hurt our relationship. So, it really isn't very suitable. We should leave it at this. Long Chen was starting to beat the drum for a retreat. He was even starting to regret what he had said. He was about to be exposed, and if he was, he'd have no face for the rest of his life. Sisters, can you leave for now? I want Long Chen's help in reading my future. I want to see if I can live past 23. Hua Xiu's voice contained an imploring tone. The others jumped, not knowing what she was saying. When I was a child, my father invited an expert from Heavenly Fate Island to tell my fate. I inadvertently heard that expert say that I would have 3 setbacks in my life, and after those 3 setbacks, the end of my life would draw near. My predestined lifespan would not surpass 23, said Hua Xiu sadly. Long Chen and the others looked at each other with shock. So Hua Xiu had actually had such a curious experience. It was no wonder she would suddenly believe Long Chen when he mentioned she would have 3 setbacks in her life. Long Chen shook his head. Didn't I just tell you that fortune-telling is nonsense? Even if he was some expert from some Heavenly Fate Island, at most he is able to see through a few small things. But the future is always indistinct and in flux. Who would possibly be able to see it clearly? Even if it was fated that you would only live to 23, just by telling you this, he added a new layer of karma. You know what this karma is? From the day you heard you would only live to 23, your fate changed. Who would believe such nonsense? Long Chen naturally scoffed at such things. Anyone with real skill wouldn't randomly say something like that, as it would fundamentally cause karma. By reading a person's fortune for them, they had changed their fate. Wasn't that precisely going against the fate the heavens had prescribed for them? How was that any different from asking the heavens to smite them? Longchen, I'm begging you. I just want to know this. I can be at peace if you can help me, begged Hua Xiu. Meng Qi, Tang Wan, and Zhao Ziyan all looked at the always unyielding Hua Xiu. Seeing her begging like this, they didn't know what emotion they were supposed to feel. No one wasn't afraid of death. Everyone had their own dreams. Everyone had their brothers, sisters, and parents. Longchen, you can't care so much about those things now. We're all cultivators, and we don't have the same misgivings as the people of the secular world. Please help Sister Xiu read her bones. Tang Wan'er pushed Longchen toward Hua Xiu. At the same time, two of her fingers lightly pressed against his back. Longchen knew that she was warning him not to mess around. No matter what he read, he couldn't tell that cruel truth. He swore inside. She truly overestimated him. He was purely messing around, but now, just what was he supposed to do? Who would have thought things would progress to this point? If he once more did what he did before, then that would be inhumane. And yet, not touching her was not an option either. Longchen had an urge to slap himself in the face. If he touched, he was a beast. If he didn't, he was worse than a beast. Just what had he done to himself? Hua Xiu actually began to take off her outer clothes. Her snow-white skin revealed itself to him. She was irresistibly beautiful, but Longchen didn't know where he was supposed to put his hands. Was he supposed to hold her arms from below or from above? His head buzzed and his sweat dripped down from it. He hadn't been nervous when fighting against Han Zhenyu, but now his body was rigid. Hurry up! Tang Wan'er saw that Longchen simply had his hands extended, but didn't dare to actually place his palms on Hua Xiu's arms, so she urged him on. She thought he was just embarrassed. But now wasn't the time for him to be embarrassed. Hua Xiu clearly had a great deal of faith in what that Heavenly Fate Island expert had said. She was filled with anticipation and was restless. She clearly didn't want to die yet. Now was not the time to care about trivialities. Longchen clenched his teeth and placed his hands on Hua Xiu's arms. He had decided that he had to continue acting. In any case, all he had to say was that the expert had been full of crap. But Longchen didn't want to continue, because this wasn't just taking a little advantage. If he still had such thoughts at such a time, he would look down upon himself. In order to make his act more believable, he began to secretly circulate the 9-star Hegemon body art. He closed his eyes, and a soft light appeared on his palms. That was Longchen's spiritual yuan. He used his spiritual yuan to feel Hua Xiu's bones. This way, it wouldn't go too far. As Longchen's hands went over Hua Xiu's arms, she trembled. A strange feeling came from those large hands that made her red and breathe faster. But when Longchen's hands reached Hua Xiu's shoulders, he suddenly frowned. His hands slowly moved toward Hua Xiu's chest. Ah! Hua Xiu suddenly let out a startled cry. Not only her, but Meng Qi, Tang Wan, and Zhao Ziyan also cried out. When Longchen's hands pressed against Hua Xiu's ample chest, black qi began to pour out of her chest, forming a black figure in the air in front of her. A pained expression appeared on Hua Xiu's face. It was like her heart had been pulled out, and she was as pale as paper. Sorcery? Longchen opened his eyes. A bright light shone in them. With Longchen's hand on Hua Xiu's chest, black qi poured out and tightly bound his hand. The black qi formed strands, looking like sinister centipedes that had come out to attack him. Through circulating the 9-star Hegemon body art, he had sensed some strange fluctuations above Hua Xiu's spirit root. At that time, the 9-star Hegemon body art had acted on its own, and when his hand unconsciously touched Hua Xiu's chest, it began to circulate even faster, pulling out this strange black qi. Longchen, what's going on? Meng Qi and the others jumped in shock. These black strands formed a demonic and fiendish figure. This figure seemed to have come from within Hua Xiu, while the 9-star Hegemon body art had forcibly pulled it out. However, Hua Xiu felt like her organs were being ripped out of her. Longchen was also shocked. Just what was this? A curse? Why would it be sensed by the 9-star Hegemon body art? Furthermore, it felt like the 9-star Hegemon body art detested this thing and wanted to destroy it. Long Chen stopped. Sister Xiu can't hold on, shouted Zhao Ziyan. Hua Shiyu's aura was rapidly falling. Long Chen hastily stopped the 9-star hegemon body art. That black figure instantly returned to Hua Shiyu's chest and vanished without a trace. It couldn't even be sensed. But now Hua Shiyu was pale and limp. The 5 of them were all silent for a moment, filled with shock. Just what was that strange figure? Long Chen, what was that? Asked Meng Qi. Hua Shiyu also looked at Long Chen, but she was now extremely weak. She looked like she was heavily injured and didn't even have the energy to speak. That black figure had heavenly Dao energy on it. But it was different from the true heavenly Daos. It's strange. Long Chen's expression was also grave. His head rapidly worked. According to his understanding of the 9-star hegemon body art, it was very sensitive to heavenly Dao energy. It might even be more accurate to say it detested it. In that same vein of thinking, he suspected that the reason the heavenly Daos constantly went against him was because of the 9-star hegemon body art. But he still understood too little of the true heavenly Daos. As for that figure in Hua Shiyu's body, its aura was much weaker than the true heavenly Daos. It was like it was artificial. Artificial? Long Chen suddenly thought of a possibility. Shiyu, how did you become acquainted with that expert from Heavenly Fate Island? What's the whole story? Hua Shiyu had recovered slightly, but she still wasn't fully healed. Her voice was raspy as she said, "It happened when I was still very little. An expert who said he came from Heavenly Fate Island just happened to be passing by my family's land. My family is large and has a great deal of influence in its region. But we had never heard of any experts from Heavenly Fate Island who go out into the mundane world. Rumor is that Heavenly Fate Island is extremely mysterious, and it rarely interacts with the mundane world. When that expert came, my father was suspicious and thought he was a swindler. But that expert managed to list out many secrets of my Hua family as soon as he arrived. Some of those secrets were things even my father didn't know about. When the patriarch learned of it, he was absolutely shocked. The expert said I was a spirit child that had reincarnated. I would have 3 setbacks that would draw a calamity upon myself, and it's fated that I won't live past 23. At that time, my Hua family was shocked. The expert later spoke to my father alone, saying that if he wanted me to live, it would require forcibly changing fate. It would require tricking the very heavenly Daos. However what? Asked Long Chen. However, he said that forcibly changing my fate would make him bear a large amount of karma, and he was unwilling to do it for free. So he wanted my family's ancestral treasure, the Dao-seeking King Jade. That is a remnant of our ancestors and the foundation of my Hua family's inheritance. My father naturally refused. The expert merely smiled coldly and left, saying that if my father ever regretted his decision, he could go to the Heavenly Fate Pavilion in the Grand Han Ancient Nation to find him. Then my first setback occurred. My family became uneasy, as I was my family's hope of rising in my generation. As for the patriarch, even he was tempted and had an urge to give away the ancestral treasure. But my father was extremely against this, saying that the expert's sneer had clearly been one of a petty person who was enraged at being refused. He didn't have the slightest air of an expert, so he was clearly just a swindler. But when my second setback occurred, my father also became afraid. He hesitated for a long time, and in the end, he called me in front of him and said I could decide. I was afraid, but I knew that without the Dao-seeking King Jade, my Hua family would lose its foundation and might quickly decline. So I chose not to believe that person's fortune-telling. That's why I go all out cultivating, so that no one can look down on me. I wanted to show everyone that I'm fine, and my parents don't need to worry about. Hua Xiu lowered her head. Meng Qi and the others were all surprised as they hadn't expected Hua Xiu to have such a backstory. Their hearts all felt heavy. Zhao Ziyan patted Hua Xiu on the back, but she didn't know what to say to comfort her. Long Chen was silent for a while and then asked, "What's the effect of your family's Dao-seeking King Jade?" "It's an ancient jade with Dao charm flowing around it. Even without doing anything, it allows a person to grow closer to the heavenly Daos. It lets a person's heart be calm. It is extremely helpful to people below the Xiantian realm. Is it only useful to those below the Xiantian realm? Asked Long Chen. Yes. Above the Xiantian realm, it is essentially useless. So although it's a good treasure, it doesn't cause any powerful sects to get greedy, explained Huaxiu. Then based on what you said, I would guess that this so-called expert from Heavenly Fate Island did something to you. Above your spirit root, there's a strange clump of energy hiding. When I read your bones, it was provoked. This clump of energy contains Heavenly Tao energy, but it's different from the Heavenly Tao energy Celestials use when fighting. It's like karmic energy and very strange. Furthermore, this energy has merged with your spirit blood and even your soul. If it's forcibly removed, you will definitely die. Hey, what are you saying? Long Chen, can't you put it more gently? Rebuked Tang Wanner angrily. Long Chen immediately became embarrassed, because he had truly misspoken. He hastily said, but you don't need to worry. When we return to the sect, we can ask the Xian master to help and it'll be no problem. But Huaxiu wasn't the slightest bit excited. Instead, she dimly shook her head. The Xian master won't help. Why not? Because Heavenly Fate Island is more terrifying than you imagine. There is not a single sect that wishes to offend them. They control fate, and so for them to destroy a sect is extremely easy. Most terrifying of all, their actions are all well hidden. You might not even know how the sect declined, sighed Huaxiu. It can't possibly be that exaggerated, right? Wasn't this too ridiculous? Then who would dare to provoke them? In truth, it really is like this. No one is willing to offend them. All the large sects want to curry favor with the Heavenly Fate Island, afraid of something being done to them secretly. That's the terror of Heavenly Fate Island, said Huaxiu. If this was true, then they really were badass. But for them to get jealous of other people's treasures, they were a huge pain in the ass. Huaxiu's family's ancestral treasure was clearly not very useful to others. However, it seemed that this expert had a use for it. Long Chen was 90% sure that this expert had done something to Huaxiu in order to force the Hua family to hand over their treasure. He had seen despicable people, but he had never seen someone this despicable. Even the swindlers in the secular world only conned people of their money, not their entire family fortune and their lives. In truth, it's not that complicated. As long as you tell the Shen Master, he can use the reincarnation mirror to easily erase that strange energy. Previously, you couldn't be sure that the Shen Master would help you, but don't misjudge him. Although he looks like a lazy person leisurely passing his days, he's a very courageous man. If you ask him, he will definitely help, guaranteed Long Chen. Don't randomly spout such nonsense. How could the Shen Master be described as lazy and leisurely? Are you not afraid of the Shen Master expelling you? Scolded Meng Qi with a smile. The tense atmosphere lightened a great deal. Huaxiu said, however, it will still bring trouble to the Xiantian Dao sect. If the Xiantian Dao sect declines because of me, I'd rather die. It's not so serious. How old are you right now? Asked Long Chen. He wanted to know how much time she had left. Long Chen was confident that the expert from Heavenly Fate Island had used Heavenly Tao energy to leave behind a seed within Huaxiu. Or perhaps it should be called a curse. Arts that involved fate were mysterious and profound. They could not be described with words, nor could they be underestimated. For Heavenly Fate Island to possess such a reputation was definitely not a coincidence. Long Chen didn't dare to be careless. I turned 22 last month, said Huaxiu. In other words, there was less than a year until her time was up. Oh, you're even a bit bigger than Long Chen. Tang Wanner was a bit surprised. She had always thought that Huaxiu was younger than Long Chen. Looking at Huaxiu's chest, Long Chen thought to himself that she wasn't just a bit bigger. He sighed regretfully. Just now, he had been completely focused on that clump of energy and hadn't gotten a good feel. What a waste. Just as Long Chen's thoughts took a turn from proper things, Meng Qi's hand stealthily reached toward Long Chen's waist and gave him a vicious pinch. Although she wasn't able to cause him pain with this, Long Chen knew his spiritual fluctuations had been sensed. Shiyu, don't worry. If you're worried about implicating the Dao sect, then I'll help you handle it. I can use a medicinal pill to help you extract that energy. But the process will probably be a bit painful, said Long Chen. Hua Xiu felt much better after hearing Long Chen's promise. After he had ended up provoking that foreign energy within her, she trusted his abilities and what he had said. Now she hated that despicable person from Heavenly Fate Island. He had actually done such a thing to her when she had been a child. He was worse than an animal. But as for right now, she was in too weak of a state to attempt extracting that mysterious energy. Her soul and spiritual yuan had been shaken just now. She needed to rest. Fortunately, there was still enough time, so they could wait a few days. Meng Qi and Zhao Zian helped Hua Xiu leave. Now there was only Long Chen and Tang Wan. Tang Wan'er suddenly smiled mischievously. Long Chen, what do you think? Are they big? Long Chen immediately turned solemn and serious. Don't mess around. At that time, I was focused completely on saving her. How could I have such thoughts? Long Chen naturally wouldn't admit such a thing. But Tang Wan'er still didn't give up. Holding his arm, she said, I'm not jealous. I just want to know, is she bigger or am I bigger? She seems to be a little bit bigger. You liar. Long Chen had only just answered when a burst of pain came from his waist. It was a sneak attack from Tang Wan. You're the one who asked me to answer, and you said you weren't jealous. So what? Who said you could say she was bigger than me? Sniffed Tang Wan'er angrily. Long Chen realized he had jumped past one trap only to land in another. She wasn't jealous, no. She was simply angry. But then thinking about it, he really had been stupid. Could you really trust a woman? He should have instead continued acting like a gentleman. Seeing Tang Wan'er's angry appearance, Long Chen suddenly chortled and wrapped a hand around her waist. Don't touch me, I'm angry. Tang Wan'er pushed his hand away. But Long Chen forcibly pulled her in and smiled mysteriously. Don't be angry. I was just telling the truth. Her chest really is just the slightest bit bigger than yours. You're saying it again? Tang Wan'er kicked Long Chen furiously, but being held by him, she wasn't able to reach him. However, yours has greater potential than hers, said Long Chen. He understood Tang Wan'er the best. Sometimes she would refuse to admit defeat like a child. She was always competitive, and she even wanted to compete in such a thing. Long Chen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. But who asked him to be so stupid as to actually reply with the truth? He had to think of a way to make her happy again. What potential? Who would believe your nonsense? Tang Wan'er sniffed. I'm telling the truth. Her size has already been set in stone, whereas you still have plenty of room to grow. First of all, let me ask, are you bigger, or is Meng Qi bigger? Asked Long Chen. Of course big sister Meng Qi is bigger. I call her big sister. Tang Wan'er's reply almost made Long Chen choke. Men decided seniority based on power. Could it be women-based seniority on this? His eyes had been opened to the world today. Foolish girl, you're the one I've been with the longest. When I have something good, I naturally think of you first, and I have a method to allow your size to quickly catch up to the others. Long Chen held Tang Wan'er's hand sincerely. It was true that amongst all of Long Chen's lovers, he had been with Tang Wan'er the most. When Tang Wan'er heard that, she was moved and stopped struggling. In truth, although Tang Wan'er had accepted that Long Chen had multiple lovers, she still wished that she would be the most pampered one. Saying he had been with her the most and that he would think of her first, Long Chen immediately touched upon the softest part of her heart. She immediately stopped arguing. Long Chen couldn't help but smile. In truth, her body was practically perfect. Although her chest was not as large as Hua Xiu's, the truth was that if you were to take a quick look and compare them, they would look about the same. But because of Long Chen's slip of the tongue, she had started to feel a bit inferior, and so she had gotten angry with Long Chen. You're the one with the greatest potential. In the future, I'll help you with a massage technique. As long as the two of us work together, I'm sure that with your talent and aptitude, plus this hard work, you'll quickly surpass them. Really? Tang Wan'er looked down, clearly a bit enticed. Of course. When have I ever tricked you? At night, or when you have nothing else to do, take advantage of when Meng Qi isn't around to come to my room. I'll help you massage them, and they'll definitely grow, said Long Chen. He involuntarily gulped. A slip of the tongue had been recovered to this point. How marvelous was his scheming! Long Chen was admiring himself more and more. He had touched Meng Qi's before, but not Tang Wanner's. He was only able to stealthily make some calculations. Because she was too fiery and normally she was with Meng Qi, if he did have a touch, once she let out a cry, it would be awkward. Thinking of how he could justify doing such a thing, Long Chen looked toward Tang Wanner's chest. He had an urge to start helping right now. Why does it have to be when Sister Meng Qi isn't around? Aya, foolish girl, what if she sees and wants me to massage hers as well? Then you'll never surpass. Meng Qi, you're back? Meng Qi looked at Long Chen with a smile that was not a smile. Standing there with her sweet smile, she didn't say a word. Hee, Meng Qi, you're really beautiful. Yes, you're getting more and more beautiful. Long Chen hastily let go of Tang Wanner and went up to hug Meng Qi. But Meng Qi stepped to the side, dodging. Does a certain someone think that saying a few nice words will make up for his evil intentions? Meng Qi was still smiling, but this smile made Long Chen's hair stand on end. Sister, we're not doing anything bad. You've misunderstood, said Tang Wan. Foolish girl, you really are easy to trick. He's trying to seduce you into doing the wrong thing. If you do that, how will you face Ji Qiu and Chu Yao? Scolded Meng Qi. But Long Chen said it's just touching. I just want to get bigger. I want to be as ample as you. Tang Wan looked at Meng Qi's chest with envy. Yes, exactly, my goal is completely pure. Long Chen raised his hands innocently. He truly loved Tang Wan to death now. He swore he wouldn't fail to live up to her trust, and that he would make her the amplest woman in the world. It's not that simple. That place can't be touched by anyone. Meng Qi couldn't help but turn red upon seeing Tang Wanner just foolishly staring at her. It's not anyone, it's Long Chen. Tang Wanner still didn't understand. I'll explain to you later. Long Chen, I'm warning you, don't even think of continuing with this. We've already made our agreement. If she ends up doing that with you, even if no one else says anything, she'll be ashamed. Then you'll have harmed her, warned Meng Qi. I wouldn't do that, swore Long Chen. Who could be sure about this kind of thing? If Wanner couldn't hold back and begged you, what would happen? Long Chen was immediately struck dumb. If Tang Wanner really took the initiative to seduce him, it would be dangerous. Big sister, I feel like I'd be able to control myself, said Tang Wanner bravely. You foolish girl, what he was telling you. I know how to do it. I'll help you when we get back. Meng Qi pulled Tang Wanner away. Hey Meng Qi, how about I help? I can supervise you and make sure you do it right. You should know, your technique definitely isn't as good as mine, and you won't be able to massage them well enough. As a professional, a glare from Meng Qi made Long Chen swallow his words. He had almost made another slip of the tongue. Seeing that Meng Qi and Tang Wanner had slipped away, Long Chen helplessly sighed. He couldn't even get a touch. There's simply no way around it. Meng Qi will definitely make defenses against anything I try. I should focus on cultivating. It's time to cultivate the fourth style of Split the Heavens. In his battle against Han Zhenyu, the reason he had been able to defeat him in the end was not just because Blood Drinker had advanced to the king item level. Another main reason was because of the third form of Split the Heavens. Blood Drinker had only just advanced and still wasn't able to unleash the full power of a king item. Right now, it was in seclusion in the primal chaos space. But a new rune appeared in one of Long Chen's acupuncture points. It was the first divine rune of the fourth form of Split the Heavens. It's this easy? Long Chen was surprised. Now that each of his 108,000 acupuncture points had an immortal platform within, he could condense this rune almost instantaneously. Previously, he had been forced to first enlarge his acupuncture point and nourish it with his spiritual yuan for a long time before a divine rune would fully condense. It would take several days. Furthermore, Feng Xinglia had solemnly warned him to be careful with the fourth form of Split the Heavens. Its divine runes were extremely berserk and could break his acupuncture points. But under the suppression of his immortal platform, the divine rune was like an obedient little rabbit. There wasn't any sign of it going berserk. In less than a day, He had condensed all 9 embryonic forms of the 4th form's divine runes. Now when he used the 4th form of Split the Heavens, it would be easier and there was less chance of a backlash. However, these divine runes were still in their embryonic form, and it would take a long time to slowly nourish them. Only after they matured would he be able to fully unleash the power of the 4th form of Split the Heavens. The flying boats rapidly flew through the air and even went through 2 supreme transportation formations. 7 days later, the flying boat stopped in front of an ancient city. The flying boat stopped 100 miles from the ancient city. Li Changfeng told Long Chen, "This place is the Xiantian Dao sect's territory and is called Xiantian City. In accordance with the Martial Heaven Alliance's rules, everything ahead is the hunting ground for disciples. That means kings and above are not allowed to enter, so you'll have to enter on your own." On the way here, Long Chen had learned more about this place. The defensive zones that all the large sects were protecting along the sea were not just battlefields. They were also very beneficial to the growth of a sect. Only foundation forging cultivators were allowed inside. Kings and above were forbidden because the higher-ups were worried about them sneaking into the sea to go hunting. Then they might end up disturbing some terrifying existence. Also, Long Chen, try not to cause too much trouble. Li Changfeng gave him one last warning before leaving with the flying boat. "Hee, I have orders to cause trouble. If I don't cause enough, the Xian master won't be happy." Long Chen laughed inside. Seeing the 2 flying boats leave, Long Chen was just about to speak when Gao Xianying waved his hand and led his people inside. Gao Xianying's side had less than 30,000 people. As for Long Chen's side, he had the new disciples as well as over half the old disciples. His side numbered close to 300,000. Although they were said to be 2 equal groups, the number disparity was so great that even the flying boats they had been given to use were different. This fact displeased Gao Xianying extremely. As soon as Li Changfeng left, he walked over to Xiantian City without even looking at Long Chen. It was clear he was acting like this intentionally. "Let's go as well. We're now villagers far from the sect. We can be fearless men here," laughed Long Chen. The others couldn't help but look at him oddly. With his temper, when was he not a fearless man? In all of the Xiantian Dao sect's history, there had never been a disciple like him. Just how many elders and teachers had he slapped in the face? He had even slapped the heaven-suppressing magic sect's vice sect master. Long Chen led them forward. A sea breeze began to blow by them, one that contained a dense smell of blood. That smell was something that came from within this ancient city. The city was 300 miles wide, and it was extremely ancient and worn down. Even the city gates were covered in cracks. There were signs of ugly patches all over them. The sea breeze caused constant damage to the city, causing its walls to erode quickly. Long Chen and the others were caught unprepared by how weak the city walls were. As the core area of the Xiantian Dao sect's defensive zone, despite being called Xiantian City, it was so worn down that it was on the verge of collapse. The city walls were filled with holes, and everyone was careful, afraid that a bump might cause the whole city to collapse. In front of the city gates, Gao Xianying was speaking with a man wearing a crown. They actually embraced each other enthusiastically. This man was the city lord's son, Gusu. His cultivation base was at the 8th heaven stage of foundation forging. Due to the Martial Heaven Alliance's rules, even the strongest expert in the city had to still be in the foundation forging realm. Gusu was also a rank 6 celestial, but he had never gone out. He always stayed within Xiantian City. 5 years ago, Gao Xianying had come here with the mission to hunt sea demons. That was how the 2 of them knew each other. "Brother Xianying, it's been 5 years. You've once more advanced. I'll hold a celebration dinner for you," said Gusu. Then he lowered his voice and said, "So, are there any beauties this time? Introduce me to them." In truth, Gusu was a miserly, perverted man. Last time, Gao Xianying had set him up with a woman to play some of the games the Xiantian Dao sect's disciples used to quench their thirst, and Gusu had immediately become infatuated with them and couldn't stop. These games were a kind of way for men and women to amuse themselves without breaking the sect's inherited rules. The Tao sect had a rule that stated its female disciples could not lose their virginity. That would affect their comprehension of the heavenly Taos. As for male disciples, they couldn't merge yang with yin, or they would also be affected. The sect enforced this rule strictly. If anyone tried to do such a thing in secret, they would definitely be found out and expelled from the sect. At best, they would be demoted to a worker or commoner. But stifling these men and women so badly also wasn't good. To avoid that, the Tao sect had ways to resolve those urges so they didn't have to be distracted. Other than that final step of merging yin with yang, there weren't many other restrictions. And so the Tao sect's disciples developed many thirst-quenching games on the sly. The Tao sect neither supported nor opposed these games. But if anyone lost their virginity, they would be directly expelled. But there were always geniuses in every possible field. The Tao sect's disciples ended up developing amazing games with special tricks and techniques. These games were sometimes even more stimulating than the real thing. As for Guisu, the city lord's son, he was truly a silk pants disciple. He had long since lost his pure body. It was unknown how many women in the city had had an affair with him. But after Gao Xianying had come, he had experienced a new kind of pleasure, which made him feel inferior. As expected, true members of sects knew how to play much better. So once Gao Xianying and the others had left last time, Guisu had been lost in loneliness. It was like all the women by his side had become lackluster. When he tried to teach them those techniques, they were unable to replicate them. This time, the sign of the martial heaven Searing's tide had delighted him. The first thing he had thought about was what that woman had taught him. Gao Xianying felt immense disgust for Guisu, as well as disdain. He had an urge to viciously slap this miserly pervert. Last time, he had had that female disciple treat him properly, but when the time to split the resources had come, this cheapskate hadn't given him the appropriate portion. In the hunting mission last time, the spoils of war were supposed to have been split 50-50 with the disciples and Xiantian City. And the one in charge of that had been Guisu. According to normal logic, having played with Gao Xianying's toys, Guisu should have secretly added some benefits to make him feel better. But what had Guisu done? He had come up with a bunch of excuses and had taken another 10% of the resources for himself. As a result, the 50-50 split ended up 60-40. Xiantian City had taken 60%, while Gao Xianying had been left with 40%. At that time, Gao Xianying had turned green with fury. But Xiantian City was an independent department, and within its walls, people had no choice but to lower their heads. And so he had been forced to endure. Now 5 years had passed, and this idiot immediately wanted more from him. Gao Xianying didn't know how this idiot had managed to live to this day. Did he not feel embarrassed to directly say such a thing? But he simply smiled and said, "Brother, I brought some peerless beauties for you this time, and they're all exquisitely skilled. However, they're quite haughty, so it'll be up to your own skills." At this time, Long Chen and the other disciples also arrived. When Guisu saw Meng Qi, Tang Wan'er, Zhao Ziyan, and Hua Xiu, his eyes almost popped out. He had never seen such beautiful women, so now seeing 4 of them at once, he immediately began to drool. Gao Xianying saw him looking at the 4 of them like a pig and smiled. "Stop. Show me your identity badges. I need to confirm them one by one." Long Chen and the others were suddenly stopped by a middle-aged guard. He had a hat on at a crooked angle and a sheathed saber on his waist. Long Chen was first startled, but then he saw Gao Xianying and the others entering without any investigation at all. He was clearly just making things hard on them. When Hua Xiu showed her badge, a large hand suddenly took it. "Let me see." This hand belonged to Guisu. At the same time as he grabbed her badge, he extended extra far to touch her hand. A feverish light shone in his eyes as he began to lose control. Scram! Hua Xiu's face immediately turned frosty, and she sent a kick straight toward Guisu's crotch. Long Chen could hear 2 consecutive cracking sounds. Guisu screamed and flew back like a shooting star, striking the city gates. As a result, the broken-down city gates collapsed, burying him beneath the rubble. The dozens of guards were startled. One of them was about to curse at her when Hua Xiu extended a hand and slapped him across the face. This foundation forging expert was slapped unconscious by Hua Xiu. The other guards immediately realized something was off. This woman was not so easy to provoke. Rather than stupidly attacking her, they ran over to Guisu, pulling him out of the rubble. But he was still screaming and rolling crazily. Even for cultivators, the life rod was a fatal weakness. That place was not so easily recovered with heavenly Tao energy. That was because it was the root of passing down the ancestral line. It was the foundation of the human Tao. Using heavenly Tao energy to heal that spot might recover the form, but it would lose its core ability. It would essentially be crippled, and there would be no more human Tao coming from there. Looking at Guisu rolling on the ground as he held his crotch and wailed, a disdainful expression appeared on Long Chen's face. He sneered inside, "I can touch, but if you touch, it'll be dangerous. Just touching a hand practically severed your ancestry. Do you want to try touching her chest?" Gao Xianyang heard all this and was delighted, but he put on an expression of shock as he looked back. The disturbance startled all of Xintian City, and a large group of experts rushed over. "Long Chen, how brazen! You dare to attack the city lord's son!" Gao Xianyang cried out furiously, hiding his delight. "Who dares to cause trouble in my Xintian city?" Suddenly, a furious roar rang out, and a middle-aged man appeared in front of everyone. This middle-aged man was the city lord. He was also Guisu's father, Guiyang. Seeing that his precious son had been injured, he was startled and infuriated. He roared at Long Chen and the others, just about to attack. "City Lord, Junior Master's life rod has been severely damaged. It requires peak-grade life-giving elixir and a top-grade flesh-birthing pill to heal." One of the elders quickly examined Guisu's injuries. Having one's penis and balls completely destroyed was naturally a heavy injury. Guiyang only had this one son. Now, this was a big matter. Guiyang frowned, and after a moment of hesitation, he said, "Have healers treat him. Medicine can also be poisonous, so healing naturally is better." The elder was speechless. He had followed this city lord for 300 years. Although he was well aware of how stingy he was, he hadn't thought he would be so stingy with his flesh and blood son. This was the epitome of stinginess. Healers could definitely help him recover, but it would be painful and take a long time. Guiyang would rather his son suffer than heal him with medicine. "Who did this? Get out here." As people carried away Guisu, Guiyang glared at Hua Xiu and the others. Hua Xiu was just about to walk out when Long Chen beat her to it. He said, "You are City Lord Guiyang? The Shen Master has ordered me to give you some money." What shocked all the disciples was that the furious Guiyang immediately smiled brightly upon hearing that he would get money. Yes, as expected, the Shen Master is a hero amongst men. "Sigh, my Xintian city has truly been low on funds recently. We don't even have the money to repair our defenses." "Where is the money?" Long Chen smiled. He had an urge to prostrate himself in admiration toward the Shen Master's scheming ability. With both hands, he extended a spatial ring to Guiyang. Just as Guiyang reached out toward it, Long Chen's hand suddenly grabbed his wrist, and in front of everyone's shocked gazes, he threw him to the ground. Boom! Dust flew everywhere. Guiyang had never imagined that Long Chen would dare to sneak attack him. He had no defenses at all and was easily knocked unconscious. "Long Chen, what are you doing?" Now, even Gao Xianyang was shocked. Was he trying to rebel? At this time, countless experts flew out of Xintian City, looking at Long Chen holding the unconscious Guiyang with dumbfounded expressions. But not one person came to help. "I was ordered by the Shen Master to investigate Guiyang's corrupt practices. He embezzled the wages for workers just to stuff his own pocket. Here is the tablet the Shen Master personally bestowed upon me." Long Chen took out a golden tablet with a large Shen character written on it. It gave off immense pressure, and when it was taken out, an illusory image of the Xintian Dao sect appeared. This was the Xintian Dao sect's highest authority tablet. Seeing it was like seeing the Shen Master. Starting today, I am the city lord. My orders are to seal the city. No one can leave. Those who disobey will be directly executed, announced Long Chen. Everyone just stared blankly. Even Meng Qi and Tang Wana hadn't known that Long Chen had come with special orders. Senior apprentice brothers Su Mo, senior apprentice sister Mu Qingxian, Hua Shiyu, and Wang Zhen bring people to block the 4 city exits. If anyone dares to forcibly leave, kill them, ordered Long Chen. Although the 4 of them didn't know what Long Chen was thinking, they still led their people to seal the city. Long Chen brought the remaining disciples into Shintian City. Once they were inside, they truly became speechless. There was not a single brick in Shintian City that was still intact. They were all cracked and broken. This was the most broken-down city Long Chen had ever seen. Once he was inside, he saw quite a few foundation forging experts dispiritedly soaking in the sun. They looked like they were just waiting for death. Seeing Long Chen dragging an unconscious Gu Xingyang, those people's eyes brightened slightly. One of them even excitedly asked, "Senior, have you come to uphold justice and put this blood-sucking ghost on trial?" "Senior?" Looking at this middle-aged man with a full beard and mustache, Long Chen felt a wave of pain at being called a senior. But he understood this person's expression. This person had clearly been suppressed and squeezed too hard and for too long. He clearly wanted Gu Xingyang dead. "Does Gu Xingyang have any accomplices?" asked Long Chen directly. Yes. I'll bring you to them right now." Quite a few people began to cry out with excitement, shocking Tang Waner and the others. They had no idea what was going on. "Let's go." Long Chen handed Gu Xingyang to Gu Yang and followed these people to a luxurious mansion. As soon as they arrived, several experts blocked their way, cursing. Long Chen directly sent those people flying and broke the door down with a punch. Only once all of them had charged in did the people inside react. However, they were easily beaten into submission by the Dragon Blood Legion. At the core of the mansion, a large fatty appeared. He was just about to speak when he was knocked unconscious with a fist. Shintian City had 4 great noble families. Now, as soon as Long Chen arrived, they were all captured. The entire city was in disorder. Quite a few people tried fleeing, but they were stopped and captured. Within the city lord's mansion, Long Chen and all the others were gathered. Gu Xingyang and Gu Su were lying on the ground, along with dozens of people from the 4 noble families. They all lay there, motionless. Under Long Chen's orders, Meng Qi investigated their souls. What shocked everyone was that the city lord and even these noble families were people of the heaven-suppressing magic sect, or people with close relations to the heaven-suppressing magic sect. Once Meng Qi explained what she had learned with her soul search, Long Chen truly had an urge to prostrate himself toward the Shen Master. This city lord was an existence the heaven-suppressing magic sect had set up in Shintian City. It was only with their help that he had gained enough support to become the city lord. As for the Shen Master, he had simply acted like he didn't know. Gu Ziyang was an absolute Scrooge. He was miserly with others, and he was also miserly with himself. Just from the way he treated Gu Su told everything. Once he took office, he did his best to pull in as much wealth as possible. He was completely corrupt, even squeezing the disciples of their wages. He used all kinds of excuses, and as a result, none of the Shintian Dao sect's disciples wished to stay here, and they went to report to the Shen Master. The Shen Master had once sent someone to investigate, and as a result, Gu Xingyang had shown a detailed list of his accounting work. An examination of this list revealed no mistakes at all. Then that investigator had left. As a result, Gu Xingyang became even more overboard. Those people who had falsely accused him had all been kicked out, and their wages had gone into his pocket. Just 3 years after he took office, there were practically no longer any disciples from the Shintian Dao sect who stayed. There was no money to be made here, so they all returned to the sect, or they left to make their own way in the world. Gu Xingyang saw this, and he quickly enticed a few of his own relatives to come over. From his wives' families, he managed to bring over many relatives. In just 10 years, all of Shintian City was composed of the heaven-suppressing magic sect's people. This was because Gu Xingyang was not content with his situation. With no more disciples coming, his profits were shrinking, and the Xiantian Dao sect only sent money to fix the defenses every few decades. Therefore, he actually used his own relatives to take in more money. These relatives were all outer members of the heaven-suppressing magic sect, and so amongst them, his background was the greatest, so much so that they couldn't resist. His aunt was one of Ma Xingkong's dual cultivation partners. Once he had duped 4 relatives here, he directly bestowed them the title of 4 grand noble families and said they would jointly develop this region. This region was filled with countless sea demons and rich in minerals. Guixingyang had pulled them in as investors. And so they naturally had to put in money to get money. The 4 grand noble families ended up sinking all their wealth into this place. They had thought they would be able to start making all of it back in just a few decades. But they quickly found that this was not the case. The accounting books were all overseen by Guixingyang, and he constantly gave excuses that the Xiantian Dao sect had debts and was taking resources. He didn't dare to touch their investment yet. Only once they had enough accumulated wealth could they go through with the plan, so he told them to wait patiently. Guixingyang was truly a swindler. Not only did he not give them dividends, he even started charging them rent and all kinds of other taxes. The 4 grand noble families were infuriated, but Guixingyang didn't care. He directly told them that if they wanted to stay behind, they had to listen. Otherwise, they could scram. But once they left, they would lose the status of noble families, and they would lose their initial investment. So they couldn't leave, but they also couldn't do anything to Guixingyang due to his background. They could only endure. Guixingyang continued with his tricks. He had them dupe more people over. He said that he would give them 1/3 of the profits from those duped people. Furthermore, when they finally left Xiantian City, he would give them an extra 15% of their earnings. The 4 grand noble families could only start baiting their own relatives into coming in order to survive. Now, all the people in Xiantian City were the heaven-suppressing magic sect's outer members. Even the experts on duty were their people. Most importantly, they had all been tricked over, and they didn't get the slightest salary. Even when they killed sea demons, the profits would go to Xiantian City. With Guixingyang's severe threats, they didn't even dare to run away. They could only continue like this until they died. This was also why no one came to help once they saw Guixingyang had been knocked unconscious. They only watched with stupefied expressions because they were already numb. But when they learned Long Chen had come to replace Guixingyang, they almost wept tears of joy. They wished Long Chen would directly kill this greedy bastard, because only once he was dead would they be freed. Long Chen now had over 300 spatial rings, and each one of them was filled with treasures. There were weapons, sets of armor, medicinal pills, materials, spirit stones, etc. There was one in particular that made Long Chen's heart pound wildly. One particular spatial ring was filled with Yuan's spirit stones. Yuan's spirit stones were the greatest currency in this world as they only ever increased in value. That was why Guixingyang had always done his best to get more Yuan spirit stones, even if it was just 1 or 2. When Meng Qi had done her soul search on him, she found that he had a strange addiction. Each day, he would lie on top of his pile of Yuan spirit stones and sleep. That was the only way he could feel at rest. Looking at the 500 million Yuan spirit stones inside, Long Chen's admiration for the Xian master maxed out. When it came to strategy, who could compare to the Xian master? He had raised a pig for 300 years, and this pig had even drawn over more pigs from the heaven-suppressing magic sect. 300 years ago, the Xian master had seen through the character of the miserly Guixingyang. At that time, he had sown this seed. Now it had borne fruit. The amount of wealth Guixingyang had embezzled from the Xiantian Dao sect was just 1/10 of his total wealth. The remaining 90% was what Guixingyang had spent 300 years making. The return on the Xian master's investment was huge. The Xian master had subtly hinted that the Yuan spirit stones would all go to Long Chen, while the rest of the resources would be sent up to the Xiantian Dao sect. Because it was Long Chen who personally took them, the Dao sect wouldn't be affected by much karma. After all, they didn't directly give it to Long Chen. The Xian master's intention had been very clear. He had basically been telling Long Chen to be greedy and just not report the Yuan Spirit Stones. The Yuan Spirit Stones took up almost half the total wealth Guixingyang had had. Over 90% of these precious Yuan Spirit Stones were the result of his relationship with the heaven-suppressing magic sect. The more Long Chen thought about it, the more he felt that the Xian Master's plot had gone on absolutely beautifully. To use his enemy's money to fatten his own pocket, his plot had practically reached a pinnacle. What should we do with these people? Meng Qi looked oddly at the people they had captured. Release them. Even though they're spies with the intent to bring down the Xiantiandao sect, the Xian Master is a grand and magnanimous man. He doesn't wish to kill people. After all, the Xiantiandao sect has such a friendly relationship with the heaven-suppressing magic sect. Let them go so that the entire Central Plains can see what it means to be generous and forgiving, said Long Chen sanctimoniously. Guixingyang, Guisu, the noble families, and any people holding any post in the city were kicked out. The ordinary people who were kicked out thanked Long Chen over and over again. They were finally free. But as for Guixingyang, when he woke up, he let out a hysterical wail and demanded Long Chen return his wealth. Long Chen directly slapped him unconscious and had those people drag him away. In less than 4 hours, Xintian City had changed masters. Now, Long Chen was the new city lord. City lord, do you need to be served at night? Teased Tang Wanner suddenly. Don't mess around. Long Chen, what should we do? Gao Xianying and the others charged their way into the storehouse and took the only functioning flying boat to go hunting, said Meng Qi. Aren't there supposed to be 5 flying boats? Only one can fly? Asked Long Chen. It was Guixingyang. He was so stingy that he didn't even maintain the flying boats. The 4 flying boats have lost too much spirituality and cannot fly, said Meng Qi. There's Guoran. Have him repair them. Long Chen was confident in his skills. Also, tell everyone not to be in a rush to go hunting. Right now, the city is ours. Although the city is already on the verge of collapsing, we'll still need to defend it in the end. Have Su Mo, Mu Qingxian, Hua Shiyu, and Wang Zhen go hunting in the surrounding regions. When the flying boats are fixed, we can go hunting in the sea then. What about the Dragon Blood Legion? Have everyone go into seclusion and refine Yuan Spirit Stones. They should do their best to increase their cultivation bases. I'm going to check out the city's defenses. Long Chen and Guoran flew out of the city and went to see the city's defenses that bordered the sea. When Long Chen landed on the high city walls, a mass of rocks shattered. That Guixingyang really was stingy. In order to save spirit stones, he didn't even activate the protective formation. After several centuries, everything's corroded and is as weak as tofu. Guoran picked up a rock and crushed it with his hand. He shook his head. Long Chen also shook his head. This city's lifespan had already reached its limit. Even if the defensive formation was activated, it would completely break down in another few centuries. It was because the Xian Master had realized that the city was reaching its limit that he had allowed Guixingyang to come here. This city's ability wasn't actually focused on defense but offense. However, now that its lifespan had reached an end, it wasn't able to endure unleashing any attacks. Furthermore, back then, the Xiantiandao sect had been in a difficult situation financially and hadn't had the money to completely reconstruct this huge city. That would take an ocean's worth of manpower and resources. Before coming, the Xian Master had implied that the Yuan Spirit Stones were Long Chen's. But they weren't for free. Long Chen had to hold the line during this beast tide and couldn't allow the sea demons to charge into the Central Plains. If that happened, the Xiantiandao sect would lose their rights over this region. The Martial Heaven Alliance would then replace them with another power, and all the resources that could be gained here would go to the succeeding power. So Long Chen felt a great deal of pressure. After taking the Xian Master's money, he had to get to work. Since you're done forging the sets of armor, I'll need you to help me forge large quantities of something else, said Long Chen. What? For you, boss? Anything. Guoran patted his chest confidently. I want you to forge supreme bombs. The stronger the better. Can you do that? Asked Long Chen. It's not a problem. I have enough materials. However, it'll take some time. If I wanted 3 feet wide bombs, how many can you make and how powerful would they be? 3 feet? Then I can easily inscribe 100 runes on it. I can just merge phoenix plumes, scarlet gold, and ink rock black iron. Once they explode, it'll have an effective area of 300 miles. And in the core area of 150 miles, any 9th rank sea demons would definitely die, estimated Guoran. When it came to battle power, 9th rank sea demons were weaker than 9th rank magical beasts. But the most terrifying aspect of them was their numbers. Furthermore, they were usually covered in scales that bolstered their defensive strength to a high level. How many such bombs can you create a day? Even if I focus only on this, I don't think I can make more than 100 a day. This was an extremely shocking speed. If it hadn't been for his ancient forging table, just making 10 a day would be not bad. As for ordinary forging masters, trying to make more than 3 a day would exhaust them. Guoran had truly turned into a grandmaster existence in terms of forging. Boss, what are you planning to do? The city's defenses are essentially useless. If the sea demon army is too powerful for us to stop, then originally we should have drawn them over to the city to shrink the fighting area. But since the city can't be used, I'm thinking of having Song Mingyuan and Li Qi create a new dike. They'll create 2 large walls that will slant toward here, and all the sea demons will gradually be led to Xiantian City. Then we can use your bombs to make some death traps, said Long Chen. Boss, is the beast tide really so powerful? You don't think will be enough? Guoran was a bit surprised. Do you know what it means to be prepared just in case? Anything can happen, so having some hidden cards is leaving yourself with a higher chance of surviving. This isn't a joke, said Long Chen. It seemed Guoran was becoming so confident that he didn't even sense danger. Don't think this is a waste. Even if we don't use them this time, it's not like we'll throw them away. We can use them in the future. There's still some time, so right now focus on quality, not quantity. Alright, I understand, boss. Guoran nodded and left to get to work. Long Chen continued to stroll through the original dike. He saw that there were natural barriers on the 2 sides. Sheer cliffs extended far beside them. He had no idea who the people guarding the ends of these cliffs were. When his divine sense stretched into the sea, he sensed quite a few towers inside. Those were projects used to mine the minerals beneath the sea. But now they had long since stopped working. Guijingyang had originally spent a little bit to give those towers a facelift. Then after more people were baited into coming here, he had stopped caring about those things and happily squeezed those people of their money instead. Guijingyang had been very confident in his position in Xiantian City, as he had been appointed by the previous Xian master to run Xiantian City for 500 years. Furthermore, he had even had Ma Xingkong as a backer. But before the 500 years ran out, he had been kicked out. Long Chen inspected the terrain for a long while, drawing a rough sketch. Only then did he return to Xiantian City. Long Chen returned to Xiantian City and saw some Dragon Mark warriors patrolling. He couldn't help being speechless. Who told you to patrol? He asked. It was Big Brother Gu Yang, one of them replied. Go back. This broken city is already this worn down. Even if a thief came, they would just leave with tears. There's nothing to steal. Other than the cultivation region, the other places don't need to be so heavily guarded. Long Chen sent the Dragon Mark warriors on their way. Gu Yang's thinking was definitely too rigid. All the wealth within Xiantian City had been sucked dry by Guijingyang. Even if you invited people to come and steal from here, no one would do it. Walking into the city lord's mansion, he arrived at a small underground formation. At the center of it was a platform. Long Chen placed all the spatial rings he had gotten from Guijingyang other than the one with Yuan spirit stones in it. Activating the formation, a ray of light shone on the platform, and the spatial rings instantly vanished. Within multiple recesses of the formation, hundreds of Yuan spirit stones shattered. This transportation really is expensive. Long Chen couldn't help but sigh emotionally. This was a special transportation formation and could only transport small things. Usually, it was used to transmit news, as it was unable to move people. But for just a few spatial rings to cost several hundred yuan spirit stones, it was truly expensive. Other than a few dozen disciples guarding the outside, Long Chen and the rest of the Dragonblood Legion were in seclusion. The others were cultivating under the blessing of the immemorial altar lamp. Long Chen began to crazily absorb Yuan's spirit stones. There was nothing else to do these days, as Guoran needed some time to fix the flying boats. Without a flying boat, there was no way to go hunting far away. Flying in the air personally without anywhere to land was too dangerous. As for the shore or the sea that was close to the land, there weren't many sea demons. Su Mo and the others were hunting in that region, but most likely they hadn't even killed as many sea demons as they had people. There was basically no profit to be had. Long Chen crazily absorbed Yuan's spirit stones, but now he came up with something different from others. He was no longer absorbing them handful by handful. Instead, he gave all these Yuan spirit stones to Lei Long and Hualong. They devoured them and then transmitted their energy to him. This was definitely a terrifying way to absorb Yuan's spiritual energy. Anyone else would instantly explode when so much Yuan's spiritual energy was poured into them. Even Gu Yang, someone who walked the path of a body cultivator, would at most be able to absorb energy from 10 Yuan spirit stones at a time. Any more and his body wouldn't be able to handle it. He gave all the 500 million Yuan spirit stones to Lei Long and Hualong. He then directly absorbed their energy from them. This would save him the trouble of refining them one by one. Furthermore, he could also control the speed at which he absorbed the energy. Right now, Lei Long and Hualong were incredibly powerful existences. That was especially true of Lei Long. It had fully absorbed all the energy from when Long Chen had gone through tribulation, and its combat power was even greater than Hualong's now. It was only because they were strong enough that Long Chen dared to do this. The two of them ended up being like a huge reservoir of energy for Long Chen. As he extracted a torrent of Yuan's spiritual energy, he sensed the flower design on his immortal platforms rapidly revolving. A new rune quickly condensed. That rune then greedily absorbed Yuan's spiritual energy until it was fully satisfied, and then a new rune was formed. With his experience reaching the first heaven stage of foundation forging, Long Chen decided not to even bother looking at how much this was costing him. He was basically cultivating with his eyes closed. 10 days later, an explosive sound rang out from his body as he entered the third heaven stage. This time, he had been prepared, and he didn't cause a disturbance like when he had reached the first heaven stage. Sensing the immortal platforms in his body, he sank into thought. Other people would condense 9 runes into a foundation for their immortal platform. For the second heaven stage, they would condense 8 runes into the second level of their immortal platform. Following that pattern, their immortal platforms would end up being a conical shape in the end. But his immortal platforms were different. The foundation was condensed through 13 runes, and the second level was also condensed with 13 runes. The size was also the same. The third level had also taken 13 runes. If this continued, his immortal platform would end up cylindrical, different from everyone else's. Whatever, you can be whatever shape you want. Time to continue cultivating. What the fuck? Long Chen was just about to continue when he let out a startled cry. He saw that Lei Long and Hualong no longer had any Yuan spirit stones in their bodies. They're gone. 500 million Yuan spirit stones disappeared just like this. Long Chen couldn't believe his eyes. He looked again and again before accepting that this was reality. 500 million Yuan spirit stones had only let him advance 2 heaven stages. Long Chen was in despair. How was he supposed to cultivate in the future? If he used the remaining Yuan spirit stones he had, perhaps he would be able to reach the 4th heaven stage. That would leave him at the mid-foundation forging realm. But then what about the Dragonblood Legion? Long Chen was speechless. It seemed his cultivation would have to slow down for now. He stood up and stretched. He did a few exercises and he felt his body overflowing with energy. It felt like his energy was about to explode out of his control. Sensing the energy coming from the 108,000 immortal platforms, he almost had an urge to pierce through heaven and earth. Clenching his fist, space rumbled. Fine, I admit I don't begrudge it again. Sensing the immense power from his body, he felt much more at ease with having spent 500 million yuan spirit stones. Now, Long Chen's thirst for money was growing greater and greater. It was no wonder the Huayan sect believed in their wealth god. Now even he was believing in it. Money couldn't buy happiness, but now Long Chen was experiencing how painful it was to not have money. Without yuan spirit stones, there was no way for him to cultivate. With this new method involving Hua Long and Lei Long, he was confident that if he had enough yuan spirit stones, in less than 3 months, he would be able to reach the peak of foundation forging. Unfortunately, there weren't that many ifs in this world. After sighing emotionally, he left his room. Going out into the city, he saw that Su Mo and the others were still nowhere to be found. After asking around, he learned that Guo Ran had already fixed the flying boats while he had been in seclusion. Therefore, Su Mo, Mu Qingxian, Hua Shiyu, and Wang Zhen had taken the flying boats and gone hunting. As for Gao Xianyang, he didn't send any word, and Long Chen couldn't be bothered with him. As long as he didn't cause trouble, Long Chen wouldn't give a damn. Once Long Chen was out, he saw that the Dragon Blood Legion's warriors had already reached the 4th heaven stage, and quite a few had reached the 5th heaven stage. Suddenly, the sky darkened and a huge figure appeared in front of Long Chen. It was so fast that Long Chen hadn't sensed it at all before it arrived. It was the cloud-chasing heaven-swallowing sparrow. It was now over 600 meters long, and its feathers had grown out, making it appear like a majestic steed. Right now, its aura was equivalent to a 6th-rank magical beast, but its power was even greater than a 7th-rank magical beast. Brother Long. Wild jumped off from Cloud's back. During this time, Cloud had ended up close to Wild. The two of them were both gluttonous. Previously, before the flying boats were fixed, the others hadn't dared to go too far, afraid of being surrounded by sea demons. But these two were different. Cloud was incredibly fast. Its very name was a sign of its speed and devouring power. Even though it was only at the 6th rank, even 9th rank magical beasts wouldn't be able to catch up to it. Cloud needed a large amount of flesh and blood, while Wild also needed to constantly eat. Because of this, Meng Qi had finally agreed to let them go out. However, she had only permitted Cloud to eat 7th rank sea demons and below. They were still in the midst of patching its innate deficiency, so it couldn't grow too quickly. So when they went out, the 8th rank sea demons went to Wild, while the smaller ones ended up as Cloud snacks. The amount they ate was absolutely astonishing. No matter how much they ate, they never got full. Meng Qi had even bought a king item bowl for Wild before leaving. It was a spatial tool that could suck in dead sea demons and compress them. Thousands of sea demons could be compressed into the size of a thumb through this bowl, and Wild could gobble them up after that. Although Wild's cultivation base was unclear, strange lines had now started to appear on his body. It was as if he was undergoing some kind of transformation, and his aura was also growing more terrifying. As for Cloud, it had it much easier. It simply opened its mouth, and sea demons would fly in without being able to resist. Thousands or tens of thousands would be swallowed all at once. That was its innate swallowing ability. Those sea demons that were swallowed into its stomach would instantly be killed. Long Chen checked Wild's body and saw that his cells had long since been fully activated, and now each one of them was in the midst of transformation. According to Wild, he was unbearably hungry every day. Long Chen knew this was a message Wild's body was sending him. It meant he was probably about to advance. But Wild's body was different from others. The way he advanced was also different. Right now, what Long Chen needed to do for Wild was make him full. Brother Long, there aren't enough 9th rank sea demons around. I can't get full. Wild rubbed his head sadly. 8th rank sea demons didn't fill him up at all, and he was in a constant painful state of hunger. Alright, gather up everyone. We'll also go out hunting. Long Chen patted Wild comfortingly. The eastern sea gleamed like crystal under the sunlight. A flying boat slowly flew across its boundless surface. Long Chen, what's going on? How have we not encountered any powerful sea demons in 2 days? Meng Qi gently brushed back some strands of hair that had been blown astray by the wind. It's probably the calm before the storm. It means a huge beast tide is about to erupt. Long Chen's expression was a bit grave. According to past records, each time the beast tide occurred, the sea demons would enter a quiet state as if they were preparing their strength. After flying for so long, they had essentially reached the edges of the deep sea. According to reason, despite that state of calm, there should still be sea demons present. However, things were frighteningly calm. Boss, why does the beast tide even occur? I still don't understand, what's the point of this periodic attack? Asked Guyang. To put it simply, it's a method of weeding out the weak. The martial heaven searing is controlled by the sea demons, and in the depths of the sea, no one dares to provoke them. Even the continent's peak experts are intimidated by them. As for the sea demons we're killing, they're just inferior members of the sea demon race. Their bloodline is impure, and the 9th rank is their limit. Only sea demons that can reach the 10th rank and above are true members of the sea demon race. Those who came with me to the Central Plains, you must still remember that we encountered a 10th rank sea demon on the way. They are the true leaders of the martial heaven searing. Just like the continent, the sea is also a land of cultivation. But there are just too many sea demons, and when the numbers reach a certain level, it affects the pure-blooded sea demons' cultivation as well. The beast tide is caused by the leaders of the sea demons who want to see the numbers go down, said Long Chen. This secret was actually something only a few people knew. The Shen master had told him so he would be prepared. Heavens, they can control such a huge army of sea demons? Then couldn't they easily exterminate all human cultivators? Cried Guyang. It's not that exaggerated. After all, they're still beasts. They don't know alchemy, forging, formations, etc. Once they come onto the land, experts will kill them eventually. They can only run rampant in the sea. The reason they cause beast tides is to suppress the number of sea demons. It's through this balance that the number of sea demons stays low enough that the spiritual qi in the sea doesn't grow thin. That would affect the true experts of the sea demon race. This is also why they will always put out some signs that the beast tide is about to start, so that the human race can prepare. It's just a game of survival of the fittest. It's not a bad thing for humans or sea demons. The sea demon race is using human cultivators to eliminate a portion of their wasted resources. As for human cultivators, they use this battlefield to temper their disciples, as well as gathering Nadens. This is also why the Martial Heaven Alliance forbids king experts from going hunting in the sea. They're afraid they might kill some pure-blooded descendants of the sea demons. That would draw out the true leaders of the sea demon race, and then a huge battle would definitely erupt. As Long Chen explained, he scattered some medicinal powders he had previously refined into the sea. These powders also contain the blood of some of Meng Qi's magical beasts. Sea demons were very sensitive to magical beasts' blood. With Long Chen's powders, their scent was magnified. In just an incense stick's worth of time, the sea began to surge, and countless huge figures charged over. 9th rank sea demons. Wild was the first to charge out with delight. He directly summoned his barbarian blood bronze body and swung his club, blasting the first monster fish's head apart. At the same time, a bowl in his hand released a ray of light that drew the monster fish inside. Wild directly swallowed it. The others found that surprising and funny. Wild was actually filled with such urgency because of hunger. They all went out to kill the sea demons. 8th rank sea demons were no longer useful to them, but 9th rank sea demons were treasures. Their corpses could be sold for money, and their Nadens were exceptionally valuable. Long Chen's bait was drawing over more and more 9th rank sea demons. Now that the Dragonblood Legion had all advanced to foundation forging, killing these 9th rank sea demons wasn't at all difficult. The sea was quickly dyed red with the blood of the sea demons. The scent of that blood drew over more sea demons, and huge waves began to surge. Long Chen had the flying boat float over the battlefield. He looked at the intense battle below. Wild was killing and eating them one by one. In just a bit he killed dozens of them but still wasn't full. Long Chen, what are you thinking about? Seeing Long Chen frowning in thought, Meng Qi walked over. Have you noticed? The blood of these ninth-rank sea demons, the energy within it quickly dissipates in the sea, said Long Chen. Isn't that obvious? When blood enters the sea will absorb it, said Meng Qi with a teasing smile. Long Chen shook his head. That's not what I was talking about. I'm thinking, the sea demons are using the hands of humans to eliminate their weak members. Then is our cultivation world also the same? Is there also a large hand pushing us forward? I didn't think of that. Meng Qi was caught off guard, never having considered such a situation. Long Chen mulled over this possibility. In the immemorial pathway, he had gone to the depths of it with the Eastern Wasteland Bell. There he had seen an altar with a huge skull. Although the Eastern Wasteland Bell had refused to answer his questions, he still felt that the immemorial pathway might very likely be the same as the martial heaven searing. It was being manipulated by someone. If it was possible that the immemorial path was being controlled, then what about the martial heaven continent? If there really was someone secretly directing the martial heaven continent, what kind of existence did they have to be? A god? Cloud, come back. Don't get greedy. Meng Qi was distracted by her talk with Long Chen, and in that moment, Cloud had secretly eaten an 8th-rank sea demon. But Meng Qi had still caught it. Long Chen shook his head. This kind of problem wasn't one he should be pondering. Just the Central Plains was already so enormous. He would find the truth sooner or later. Meng Qi just let Cloud eat. Its innate deficiency is essentially fixed, and there are no problems with its body now. When we get back, I'll refine a pill to completely make up for any slight deficiency problem there still is, said Long Chen. The cloud-chasing heaven-swallowing sparrow looked incredibly pitiful. It was like a starving child. How could they not let it eat? Cloud immediately let out a bird cry and charged into the battlefield. You imp, you only know how to play good cop. Meng Qi rolled her eyes at Long Chen. But she didn't order Cloud back. Under her meticulous care, there was already no problem with Cloud's body. Its innate deficiency was already made up for. But Meng Qi was a cautious and meticulous person, and she was afraid of any possible accidents. And so she didn't let Cloud eat too much. As for Long Chen, he didn't think the problem was too big. Each time, Cloud would put on such a pitiful appearance. Cloud was very smart, and as soon as Long Chen spoke, it flew off. It knew Meng Qi wouldn't refuse Long Chen. Hey, that's a 9th-rank sea demon, cried Meng Qi as she saw a 9th-rank sea demon's corpse rapidly shrinking and flying toward Cloud's mouth. Just leave it. Meng Qi, don't worry so much. Cloud is an ancient species with its own inheritance. If there really was danger, it would sense it itself. By constantly restricting it and not letting it act on instinct, you'll end up restricting its cultivation base, persuaded Long Chen. Fine, I admit I was just too concerned. Meng Qi thought about it for a while and bitterly smiled. Long Chen held her hand. It's because you promised Cloud's mother that you are feeling so much pressure. But in reality, you aren't a god, and you don't know what will happen in the future. Let Cloud be. Meng Qi understood what he was saying. She cared too much about Cloud, and pampering it wasn't necessarily a good thing. It would be better if Cloud was given more room to grow. After devouring a 9th-rank sea demon, Cloud's rainbow colors lit up and a powerful aura erupted. Cloud's body rapidly grew, and it instantly advanced to the 7th rank. Meng Qi was startled. Cloud was truly worthy of being a cloud-chasing heaven-swallowing sparrow. That powerful 9th-rank sea demon was instantly digested as soon as it entered its stomach. Furthermore, its aura was still very stable. There wasn't the slightest weakening or sign of an empty cultivation base. This meant that Cloud really didn't need to be worried about so much and could grow on its own. Seeing this, Meng Qi sighed with relief. At the same time, she felt slightly ashamed. If Long Chen hadn't persuaded her, she would have inhibited Cloud's growth. After advancing to the 7th rank, Cloud suddenly let out a heaven-shaking cry and shot toward a 9th-rank sea demon. Meng Qi jumped in fright as Cloud was still only at the 7th rank. She had just formed a hand seal when she was stopped by Long Chen. Sometimes, trust is the best encouragement. Boom. that bull-headed fish-bodied ninth-rank sea demon unleashed 2 rays of bright light at Cloud. This was its full-strength attack, causing Meng Qi to turn pale. But when that light was about to strike, Cloud spread its feathers and vanished. When Cloud reappeared, it was right in front of the ninth-rank sea demon. It opened its mouth, and an azure thread of light shot out. The thread of light pierced straight through the ninth-rank sea demon's head, instantly killing it. Then its corpse was pulled into Cloud's stomach. At this moment, a dozen ninth-rank sea demons had surrounded Cloud. It simply flapped its wings, turning into a rainbow-colored light that vanished into the clouds. It was so fast that it was impossible to track. The attacks of the ninth-rank sea demons completely missed. "Nice work, Cloud," shouted Long Chen. A bird cry rang out from above the clouds as if in response to Long Chen's encouragement. A rainbow light suddenly shot down like a meteor. Cloud had folded its wings and was shooting straight toward a ninth-rank sea demon. Boom! A huge hole was forcibly pierced through the sea demon's body. Everyone was shocked. Cloud was only at the 7th rank. But it killed 9th rank sea demons so easily. Not just anyone was capable of recognizing it for a cloud-chasing heaven-swallowing sparrow. After all, that was a legendary existence. In the Dragonblood Legion, only Long Chen, Meng Qi, and Tang Wan'er knew its origin. The cloud-chasing heaven-swallowing sparrow had been expelled from the Xian beasts. That was why it was best not to tell everyone about Cloud's identity. However, even Long Chen, Meng Qi, and Tang Wan'er were shocked by Cloud's power. The cloud-chasing heaven-swallowing sparrow is far stronger than I ever imagined. We definitely need to let it have its freedom. Seeing Cloud completely dominating these sea demons, Long Chen was awed. He saw that Cloud was hunting the 9th rank sea demons, and it was trying different moves, different angles. It was honing its instincts and hunting abilities. Cloud was as quick as lightning, and its attacks only grew sharper and mightier. Any 9th rank sea demons it killed would be directly swallowed by it. Seeing this, Meng Qi couldn't help but sigh. She had always been worried about Cloud growing too fast because of its innate deficiency. But she had forgotten, the cloud-chasing heaven-swallowing sparrow was no ordinary magical beast. It had its own inheritance. She had already helped make up for practically all of its innate deficiency. Whatever little bit remained could be naturally made up by Cloud. Now that Cloud had advanced to the 7th rank, its core runes had been activated, and it was crazily absorbing flesh to make up for its deficiency. It was even more effective than when Meng Qi prepared special medicine balls for it. So Meng Qi couldn't help but feel ashamed. She had clung too much to her knowledge as a beast tamer. Although Long Chen wasn't even a beast tamer, and he didn't know much about the habits of magical beasts, he still saw more than she could. Cloud's one thing, but Wild really is a monster. How can he eat so much without his stomach exploding? Tang Wan'er looked at Wild with shock. It had been several hours. Other people would directly put away the corpses of the 9th rank sea demons they had killed to be exchanged for points. But Wild would kill one and eat one. Others had gathered a few hundred 9th rank sea demons during this time, but Wild's speed was probably 10 times theirs. Even after eating so many, he was still hungry. Each 9th rank sea demon was like a small mountain, and even though their corpses were shrunk with a king item, that was just a spatial restriction. They weren't truly small. Once they entered his stomach, they would return to their original size. No one dared to try eating a 9th rank sea demon like that. It would cause their body to explode. But Wild was still eating them without pause. Wild is also undergoing some kind of transformation. He needs lots of meat as well, said Long Chen. Long Chen had talked about Wild with the Xian Master. The Xian Master had said that the barbarian race only existed in legend and that there was no way to say anything about them for sure. Apparently, there had been some mixed-blooded barbarian races that were essentially the same as magical beasts. Due to their berserk natures, they had become the enemies of the entire cultivation world and were exterminated back in the Immortal Era. After that, Long Chen just kept his mouth shut about Wild. He knew too little about the barbarian race. It was best to keep Wild's status as low-key as possible. Wild was starting to advance. because he relied on the energy within the meat to advance. His cultivation path was different from everyone else's. No one knew what his limit was. But after eating 1,000 ninth-rank sea demons, his expression still didn't change, and that was a bit frightening. Wild's stomach was like a bottomless pit. Looking from Wild to Cloud, Long Chen bitterly smiled. It seemed trying to get rich off selling sea demon corpses wasn't going to happen. As soon as Cloud defeated and ate one, it would move on to the next. Its body was slowly growing as it ate more, and its runes began to activate, expelling impurities from the food it had eaten and keeping only the essence. This was definitely a terrifying way to advance. It was constantly eating and getting stronger in battle, and it was a kind of flawless advancement. Long Chen just watched as the Dragonblood Legion fought. He kept the flying boat on standby just in case they encountered a 10th-rank sea demon. Although he had heard that 10th-rank sea demons would not appear when the beast tide was brewing, who could guarantee anything? It was better to be careful. After fighting for 3 days, even the Dragonblood Legion was starting to get tired. Furthermore, because of this non-stop intense fighting, quite a few people had ended up being so tired that they were injured in battle. But with the healing disciples present, everything was still fine. Long Chen didn't give the order to retreat yet. Meng Qi and Tang Wan'er had an urge to fight as well, but they were held back by Long Chen. A battle against the will was also important. The more tired they became and the more their will slacked, the easier accidents would occur. But it would also temper them more. When there was no longer a tide of 9th-rank sea demons charging at them, all the warriors sighed with relief. They sat on the flying boat, exhausted. As for the Dragonmark warriors, they directly fell asleep, feeling like their bodies were empty. Only Wild and Cloud were still full of energy. Wild's bronze skin had some faint runes shining on it, and his aura was still growing. It was like a sleeping dragon was about to awaken within his body. As for Cloud, it had just advanced to the 8th rank the day before. That kind of speed was absolutely shocking. Long Chen immediately stopped Cloud from eating any more, because its aura was starting to fluctuate. That was a sign its realm was growing unsteady. It couldn't keep eating. He personally refined a few medicinal pills to stabilize its realm. It could kill sea demons for rations now, but it couldn't eat them immediately. Now everyone saw how terrifying Cloud could be. It simply spread its wings, and its runes lit up. Millions of rays of light shot out, slaughtering the 9th-rank sea demons. Then it opened its mouth and a green line of light shot out, blowing apart the sea demons. That light only flashed once, because if it was used twice, there wouldn't be any rations left. Even Long Chen and Meng Qi, who had personally seen the 10th-rank Cloud chasing heaven-swallowing Sparrow, were shocked by Cloud's abilities. It had such terrifying abilities at just the 8th rank. This kind of power had surpassed their understanding. Even if Meng Qi summoned all her 9th-rank magical beasts, they wouldn't necessarily be able to beat Cloud. Very likely, they would all be killed by it because not only was it powerful, but it was also incredibly fast. Wanting to flee in front of it was just a joke. They had truly killed an immense number of 9th-rank sea demons this time. Millions of corpses had filled their spatial rings, and there was nowhere else to put them. Long Chen tossed the leftovers that no one had room for into the primal chaos space's black soil. The iron spruce oaks rapidly grew and would soon reach their peak. The primal chaos space was now flourishing with life, giving Long Chen confidence. He wouldn't have to worry about being injured now. Long Chen's expression suddenly changed. A symbol lit up on a jade tablet on his waist, and an ear-piercing alarm rang out. Wang Zhen's in danger. Long Chen saw that it was the red symbol that represented Wang Zhen. It was rapidly flashing, meaning it was an urgent distress call. This was one of the Xiantian Dao Sect's tools. It could sense copies of itself within a range of 500,000 miles. And as long as they were within a couple 100,000 miles, they could accurately pinpoint their locations. What happened? Did he run into a 10th-rank sea demon? Asked Meng Qi. Meng Qi, look at these coordinates. Fly in that direction. Long Chen then jumped onto Cloud's back and said, Cloud, use your fastest speed. Let me see what it means to chase the clouds. Cloud let out a clear bird cry and transformed into a seven-colored ray of light. The sound of its bird cry still hung in the air, but its figure had already vanished from their sight. This fool, why didn't he bring us? Seeing Long Chen fly away with Cloud, Tang Wan'er couldn't help being a bit irritated. According to reason, he should have brought several powerful helpers as well. If Wang Zhen sent out a distress call, this matter definitely isn't normal. No matter how many 9th rank sea demons there were, he would still be able to use the flying boat to run. If it's not a 10th rank sea demon, then Long Chen is enough, and if it is, then all of us together won't be enough anyway. Long Chen has Cloud speed now, and if he can't beat the enemies, he can still escape with Cloud. He doesn't have time to explain that, so don't blame him, said Meng Qi. No wonder Long Chen loves you so much. You really understand him, said Tang Wan'er a bit enviously. Are you even getting jealous of me now? Don't mess around. We have to hurry over to the location Long Chen told us to go to. Meng Qi turned to everyone else. With the flying boat speed, we'll have 4 hours to rest. Hurry and recover in case of a big battle. Everyone immediately focused on recovering. The healing disciples used their wood attribute energy to envelop the entire legion. An image of a huge tree appeared in the air above them and life energy poured over them all. Lying on Cloud's back, Long Chen finally learned what it meant to chase clouds and follow lightning. He wasn't able to see anything in front of him. He wasn't even able to stand. And even though he was kneeling, the wind was like blades on his skin. He estimated that ordinary foundation forging experts wouldn't even be able to withstand it and would be blown off. Cloud, you really are amazing. Long Chen didn't hold back on his praise. Cloud's speed was truly amazing. Cloud was several times faster than a flying boat's max speed. Furthermore, Cloud was able to accelerate to its peak speed in just a few breaths. As for a flying boat, it needed an incense stick's worth of time to reach its max. The flying boat was just starting, while Cloud had vanished from sight. That was the difference. Furthermore, Cloud had just reached the 8th rank. If it advanced to the 9th or even the 10th rank, Long Chen couldn't imagine what its speed would be like. Long Chen stared at the jade tablet. He was rapidly approaching the marker. Rumbling sounds rang out from ahead, and in just a breath, he saw a battlefield in front of him. Thousands of black-robed people who had covered their faces had surrounded Wang Zhen's 20,000 disciples. They were holding staves in their hands, constantly unleashing powerful magical arts. As for Wang Zhen's flying boat, it was crippled and couldn't fly anymore. The magical arts had formed a huge cage surrounding them, while flying swords, huge hatchets, runic hammers, and all sorts of magical arts flew toward them. Wang Zhen had summoned a huge gold-shelled insect in the front of an army of countless various insects. Just on his own, he blocked almost half the attacks. But he was also paying a miserable price. Countless insect corpses covered the sea, practically piling into mountains. Despite paying this price, they were still in desperate straits. The sky full of magical arts were impossible to dodge. Thousands of disciples had already died. Amongst the assailants were 2 rank 6 celestials. Their magical arts were incredibly powerful, and the majority of Wang Zhen's insects were killed by them. Furthermore, a portion of their attacks pierced through the insects and landed amongst the disciples, killing them. Ha! Idiots from the Xiantian Dao sect, is there still a need to struggle? If you give up, you won't feel any pain, shouted one of the masked attackers. Bastard, I remember your voice. You're that rat who fought Hua Shiyu, roared Wang Zhen. At first, he had had suspicions that they were from the heaven-suppressing magic sect. After all, they were all holding staves and unleashing long-distance magical arts. It was truly suspicious. Moreover, they were very familiar with the Xiantian Dao sect's disciples' methods of fighting. As soon as they had arrived, they had forced them into a passive position. However, they refused to say anything when the Xiantian Dao sect's disciples demanded they tell them who they were. Now this person was pleased with himself and opened his mouth, and Wang Zhen immediately recognized him. That was because his voice was too irritating and hard to forget. That person immediately regretted speaking, So he shut his mouth and focused on attacking. "Everyone focus. Don't leave even a single one alive," shouted a black-robed rank 6 celestial. More and more attacks rained down on the Xiantian Dao sect's disciples, and Wang Zhen's expression changed. He had summoned his strongest defensive insects, but even they were unable to bear such terrifying attacks and were being killed one by one. Once his insect army was slain, there would no longer be any protection for the disciples. They would all be killed. The heaven-suppressing magic sect's disciples were too despicable. Before Wang Zhen's army had even understood what was happening, they had forced them into a death trap that was impossible to breach. Wang Zhen was filled with hatred and regret. He hated himself for being stupid. If Long Chen had been present, he would have instantly seen through his enemy's trap and chosen to attack at the beginning instead of choosing to passively defend like this. Now they were all in desperate straits. Although they had put out a distress signal, the reinforcements were too far away. Long Chen would need at least 4 hours to get here. Looking at the current situation, they wouldn't even be able to last another incense stick's worth of time. Wang Zhen had already summoned his mother insect. It was only through it that he managed to defend against the rank 6 celestials. But there was no way he could use it to beat his opponents. Don't get too pleased yet. Once senior apprentice brother Long Chen learns of this, your deaths will be far worse than ours. Brothers, don't be afraid. Since the day we stepped onto the cultivation path, we knew this day would come sooner or later. Senior apprentice brother Long Chen will definitely get revenge for us, cried a disciple. Haha, I'm very busy and don't have the time to get revenge for you. You should get revenge on your own. Suddenly, thunderous laughter rang out, and all the Xiantian Dao sect's disciples who heard it were filled with wild delight. Senior apprentice brother Long Chen. Boom. An azure line of light flew through the crowd, and the heaven-suppressing magic sect's disciples that were struck were instantly blown to bits. A clear bird cry rang out. Only now did Cloud's figure appear before their eyes. This was the cloud-chasing heaven-swallowing sparrow's innate divine ability. In just one blow, over 100 of the attackers were killed. 2 huge openings appeared in their encirclement. With those disciples killed, the magical art barrier collapsed. I didn't go attack the heaven-suppressing magic sect, but you decided to send yourselves to me. Don't blame me for not standing on courtesy. Brothers, kill them down to the last. Following Long Chen's roar, the trapped Xiantian Dao sect's disciples let out a furious roar. They launched an all-out attack against the previously wildly arrogant but now slightly panicked heaven-suppressing magic sect's disciples. Long Chen had already jumped off Cloud and shot toward the 2 rank 6 celestials. The 2 of them were likely from the heaven-suppressing magic sect's previous generation, as they had already reached the 8th heaven stage of foundation forging. Run! The 2 of them looked at each other and decided to directly flee. They didn't even bother with their flying boat or their fellow disciples. Instead, they split up and fled in 2 different directions. A blood-red saber image crashed down from the sky without any warning at one of the rank 6 celestials. That person barely had time to summon a shield before he and the shield were blown to bits. Even the 3rd form of Split the Heavens can be used instantly now. All that money was worth it. Long Chen couldn't help but sigh emotionally upon seeing the resulting blood mist. Now, he had finally reached the level that Feng Xinglia had displayed in the Eastern Wasteland when he had used the 3rd form of Split the Heavens. 27 of his acupuncture points had been instantly connected, allowing him to unleash the 3rd form without warning. It didn't give his opponent any time to prepare, totally deserving the title of his most powerful killing blow. Before this, he would have had to first lock down his opponent with his aura to use the 3rd form, or by the time he finished brewing the move, his opponent would have fled back home. And even if they didn't flee when they were locked down, they would still use their strongest move to counter. An instantaneous blow had no need for any of this. Furthermore, if it was used while the opponent was running, they wouldn't even be able to do anything. Long Chen was just about to go after the other rank 6 celestial when Cloud shot into motion. It appeared in front of the rank 6 celestial and sent out a claw. That person also summoned a shield. He was extremely crafty. This shield had some special runes on it, and when it exploded, it would give him a big boost in speed combined with the power of his opponent's attack. It would make it much easier to run. However, he had misjudged Cloud's power. Its sharp claw shone with runes and easily went through his shield to strike his body. There was no suspense at all. Cloud didn't even need to tighten its claw. That person was instantly blown apart. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.